day with like visions of me eating another steak, and I thought, wow, my body on a visceral level is like more. Give me more.
Mhm. Did you baste it?
No, I just ate it pure, just raw with just grabbing a steak with my hands and biting into it,
Oh, with butter. Okay, gotcha.
and then like a spoonful of butter on the side.
Hmm.
So interesting. I wouldn't be I've seen like dogs do like full meat diets, but just a whole human just mowing down on a ribeye, like, God, that is some animalistic shit right there.
I wouldn't mind. I've always wanted to try it, but, you know,
Kind of same.
people are always like, "Oh, you'll get sick."
I had a steak Pittsburgh once, which is like when it's only grilled for like 10 to 15 seconds on each side of it and then served to you. And
Mhm.
it tasted okay, but like the consistency was like me eating a boogie. Like it was just so chewy. It was just so squishy.
Like an oyster.
Yeah, like an oyster. Agreed. It was super Boston of you, by the way, Johnny.
Like an oyster.
Go to the
Oh
local
my god.
nice restaurant, get an oyster.
I mean, some of the fanciest food you can eat: carpaccio, sashimi, steak
Oh yes.
tartare.
Mhm.
Oh,
That stuff is all, yeah, steak tartare. It's just raw meat with raw egg,
Mm-hmm.
raw
Yeah,
anchovies,
raw fish. I've
sashimi.
never been like afraid of. I've eaten raw fish plenty in my life. I don't know. I think it's just taboo. It was just taboo to myself to
Mhm.
eat steak raw. But I mean, if you survived, all right, like the other people have as well to tell the test of time. I might be ever so inclined to mow down on a fillet.
Make
Like
sure the cut of
go into
steak
a
is
rest,
good. Make sure it's clean,
bro.
and
No,
get
go
some
into
raw
a
butter on
restaurant.
the side.
I'm
What's
eating
raw
I'm going to
butter?
Outback Steak. I'm going to Outback Steakhouse and I'm ordering a raw fucking steak and I'm just gonna eat it in front of everybody.
I think technically you can ask them to serve it to you raw.
Wait,
I don't
what's
think you
raw butter?
can.
You may have to sign a waiver though, because they say that they cook it for your health, and they may ask you to sign the waiver to make sure you don't go back and like try and sue them for not cooking your steak and getting sick.
Totally. By the way, I want to just say disclaimer: I don't advocate anybody doing this. Keep you at your diets. This is just something I did for
Mhm.
The
for a short
disclaimer.
time.
Love it.
Disclaimer. Are you asking what's raw butter, bud?
Yes.
Well,
So
when you
Is it
have a
all butter raw?
cow,
And you shake
no,
the
not
cow vigorously. You just shake the shit out of
just
it.
say shake the whole
not
cow.
here, not here in California.
Straight from the cow's teat? Is
Oh,
that
right.
what raw is?
Get soybeans, mash them into a paste, or avocado. Avocado is a good butter substitute for plant-based
Yes.
shit.
But by the way, let us know when we're starting. Bud,
Anytime.
okay?
I was just
I
gonna let the meat conversation run its course.
Oh no, no, no! I thought we are still getting set up.
I'm still kind of like figuring out how to wake up.
And actually, this is a good group too, because we have Peppo, who played Jack Kettleman, who's in the West. We have JohnnyBlamz, who had Summers, who was kind of everywhere. And then we have
Van
Derek.
Horn.
Yeah, but I feel like he ran around everywhere.
I think when people think
When
Summers, they
my
think Van Horn.
Yeah. I mean, we're
Yeah,
all nomadic in some essence, but
in
we all
some
have
way,
one big.
yeah. But you still, you're also in the East with
Mhm.
Taipan, but everybody has their own places that they've set up camp per se. So that'll be interesting. I like this.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, we waiting for ZetarkGG. Huh? We waiting for him?
Zetak,
Get that boy.
Where's that boy at, huh? Huh?
get
I'm
your butt in here, man.
pretty
Yeah.
sure we could start because
All right,
everyone
cool.
else is on they'll join possibly late.
Hmm.
Cool.
Okay.
I'm gonna pee before we dive into anything and we start brain tangenting, just so I'm not like trying to escape to pee. You know,
Yep.
I'll be 2 seconds.
Derek, guys, they're saying you're a bit quiet.
I'm a bit quiet.
I could turn them up.
I mean, yeah. I mean, or I could turn myself up too. But I mean,
It's easier if we do it.
Yeah, because your boy could get loud. I pretend to project.
You pretend. I think I'm kind of the same way, although I just like eat my microphone. So
All right, Z is
on
on his
accident.
way. Z just DM'd me saying he's on his way.
Oh
Oh,
my
cool.
lord!
Oh, it's Jack excited.
Yes.
Sorry, Jenna randomly pops in.
Yes.
Just kind of happens. Ugh.
Jenna.
Sh-
You are the father.
You
Ugh.
are the
Yeah.
I was
Yeah.
Mari Povich
Finally.
you last night.
Oh, that was so funny. I was just like, in my head, I'm like, but I just start
Can you guys
running
hear
because I noticed,
Derek
and
Moore?
then I just start like running my horse as fast as I can towards it, and I was like, hey, do you know who that was?
I was
Nope.
not paying attention to anything.
I'm like, okay, well, that was Jack Kettleman, and before I can answer, turn it around.
There he is.
There he is.
There he is. Hey.
What's going on? How you doing?
Hey, what's good there, brother?
Yeah, it's getting up from a little nappy. You know what I mean? How you doing?
Good morning.
How you doing?
Good morning,
Little
sweetie.
nappy
Z, I've been low key working on an impression of you as well, just in my spare
hell yeah.
time. Like if I pop in your stream, I'll repeat your stuff to myself. So just putting that on the back burner too.
Just sitting
I
there
just
learning.
think of Joey.
I'm not gonna lie.
Joey
Type
Tribbiani?
Yeah.
Hell yeah, dude.
And not when you're talking necessarily, but just when I'm trying to like mimic.
How you doing?
Yeah, there you go.
Yes.
Oh, is
Type
that
pan,
Joey from France?
Literally,
yeah.
Yeah.
type pan memes the fact of every time that that Cesare says shit. So me and Fei Long will look at each other and be like, "Oh, it was like, oh, do me a favor, could you get me those gems? Yes, how many are there? Oh, 200. Oh, shit, shit, shit." It's the best. I got my own little team of Cesares.
Hey, Peppo, what's your Italian accent?
Hey.
Hey, there you go.
Forget about it.
Yeah,
I love it.
Yeah, no.
Forget about it.
I'm not
Forget
even
about
gonna
it.
attempt it.
I just want a Joe Pesci. That's all I want. Someone needs to come in there and be like, "Yo, motherfucker, yo, if I look like I'm wearing fucking clown shoes to you." I need that in my life.
I would love to try one where it's less New Yorky. There's this guy on YouTube, Pasquale. You guys know who he is? He's this old. I think he might be Sicilian, and he has a cooking channel, and he's got the strongest, best Italian accent on the internet. And sometimes I'll just watch him just for his accent.
Wait a minute, is that the
Like an
really
older
tall,
guy.
skinny guy?
Yeah,
The tall, skinny guy, and he like eats like
Yeah.
a bunch of food. He's like, I'm gonna eat
Z,
this
we
egg
had to
with
trim Z
Parmesan
down when
and
we did the
just with salt
PUBG,
in my
the
body
Kettleman
as,
gang
like,
versus
some
the
Italian
DiCenzo's
dude.
PUBG
Like,
thing,
I
because for
know
some
that- I
reason
think
Discord was
you,
picking
Z,
up
in
so
your
many.
guys, you go ahead
Like
and say
it
one
was
of his
so
lines.
loud.
Take care, brush your hair.
That should help.
Oh no, that's he's talking. That's Kujin. That's a different guy. He's from
That's a different guy. Oh.
Yeah, it's a different guy. I don't know if Pasquale says it, but yeah, he says, "Take care, brush your hair, bing bang."
Ouch. That's how he says sauce.
Yo, is it okay if Croc joins us as well?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Santino DiCenzo. All right.
Santino.
Guys, this feels like a season like 2 and 3 reunion.
Right?
This is weird. This is weird. I love
These
it.
all the old timers, man.
Yeah. dude.
Dude, I'm telling you though, going back to what we talked about beforehand, if we had just this grouping of people make a gang, oh my god,
Ooh.
oh my god, the powerhouse, dude.
I'm giving Croc the role right now.
All right. Yeah, sounds good. Appreciate that. Thanks for having us too, by the way.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
of
thanks
course.
for coming.
Yeah,
All
get
of
up.
you.
I'm only here because they told me Derek would be here. And by that, I mean I was told Derek wasn't be here, so I considered leaving.
No, I let you know the list before. It's fine.
I'm gonna have my agent call your agent there, Johnny. And
Yeah,
I'm done with
yeah,
it. Man.
yeah,
I'm
that's fine.
physically done with it.
I mean, if we can start another war between you two with this, it's fine. It'll be great.
Yeah,
Well,
cool,
that's
cool,
too
cool.
bad for you
Great for the
because
RP.
I'm dead.
Yeah.
congrats.
Hey. There you go.
Okay, you can always roll another villain, you know.
I attended his funeral. It was so emotional. Emotional damage.
It's one of my favorites.
There he is.
There he is, the boy,
The
the
crack.
myth, the legend.
There he is.
How you doing?
You just can't not be Cesare and fucking Santino, can you? It's so good.
Oh my god.
Oh boy.
Which one thing before we get started. So Santino, I don't know if you remember this from a long, long time ago. There was a crate in What was it? It was
I'll
in
be right back,
Quaker's
guys. I'm gonna
Cove
grab or
that you
top off
wrote a
my
note
coffee
in a
before
book.
we dive into this.
Do you remember that?
Waker's Cove.
Uh-huh.
Oh,
It was a long time ago. You wrote like something about, why don't you keep this book here so I can write notes to you every once in a while or whatever.
that was not me. I don't know.
Okay, well, somebody put Santino's name down there. That was funny.
Oh no.
Isn't there two Santinos though on the
But it was,
server?
oh, is there? I didn't know.
Yeah, there's two, but the other one's like a second name. It's like Rodney Santino or something like that.
Yeah,
Ah,
that's
okay. Well, they may be using his last name.
Uh-oh.
Oh,
Maybe you got a
shit.
twin,
Meta.
evil twin out there. Yeah, Santino's
Uh-oh.
got an evil twin out there, man.
Of course, this was like 4 months ago, 5 months ago, so may not have anything to worry about now.
It would explain a lot. Somebody out there impersonating him.
All right. So do you want to introduce yourself since we're all here?
Sure.
Yeah.
My name is Derek, and I'm a alcoholic. No, I'm kidding. Is
Hi,
there any
Derek.
Dude, since I'm at the top of the Discord, I'll just start. My name is Derek from atop Derek Mountain. I play Zhang Wei and a slew of other different characters, but mostly main Zhang Wei at the moment of Taipan.
Welcome in.
Thank you.
We going down the list in Discord? Because then I think I'm
I
next,
guess
right?
so. Yeah.
All right, well, I'm Croc. I play Santino DiCenzo, one of the two DiCenzo brothers of the DiCenzo crime family based in Saint Denis. That's it. Hello?
That's it. All right.
Oh, we're just skipping over Bud because he's the host.
Oh, yeah.
I play Jack Kettleman, by the way. Thank you for having me. And Coyote, love you guys. Thank you.
Love you too.
So it's me then. Hey, my name is JohnnyBlamz. I played Gavin Summers and a slew of other characters over at Wild RP. I'm introducing a new character next week. I'm super excited to be here. Thanks for having me, and I'm excited to have some fun collaborative talks with you folks.
Hell yeah.
That's
Excited to
awesome.
see a new character, man.
Oh, thanks, buddy.
Well, that leaves me.
Zitark.
Yeah, how you doing, guys? Zitark, how you doing? Play Cesare DiCenzo, one of the DiCenzo brothers in Saint Denis as well. Yeah, again, thanks for having us.
Thank you all for coming. Appreciate it. So we're wanting to mainly talk about generally what you enjoy the most about your Outlaw RP and what you think makes it special and also work for you. So, we all can agree that West versus East Outlaws are completely different in how they're structured. And I just kind of want to talk about that. Like
Totally.
how long you've worked. I know that the DiCenzos have worked so long to build this up and just want to pick your brains about it.
Yeah, if you don't mind, I can start us off.
Yeah.
Something that I have really come to know about Outlaw RP, and I think everybody in this chat's going to agree, and if not, it's going to be a cool conversation, is that the rise to the top, or when you feel that your gang is at its peak power, is so much better than actually being at the top. For me, some of my favorite stuff is, as Gavin, is very early Jack Kettleman stuff with Holly Frost, and just the different dynamic of the server in comparison to now, and just how much build up you have. Playing Gavin, we had a lot of relationships with really everybody in this chat, and it was really cool to watch everything grow and just how it all ended, at least for me in my experience. Like the DiCenzos and Gavin actually started off on terrible terms, and I thought they were going to be like the nemesis from day one. Like literally the first day that we were in the server, Gavin got robbed by the DiCenzos, and I was like, oh, cool story development, and then to see them come full circle and become friends at the end was really neat. So my, I guess, icebreaker is that I think the rise in building what you want to do with your character is just as much gratifying, if not more gratifying, than actually getting to the peak of your power. I just like the rise so much better than when you're at the top.
Yeah, I would totally agree with that. I think that one thing that a lot of people do when they create outlaws and whatnot, like everyone has a backstory, right, for the character. Everyone, you should, at the end of the day. But there is something beautiful about coming from nothing and building your way up forward. Wei came out into the crossing as like just a rich Chinese Mughal, like owned his father's company. But I didn't have a fucking lick to my name because I was like, I spent it all on my boat trip. So it was very interesting to like try to understand the ways of the people, figuring out how to build a culture or an economy around mining and everything else too, and push that agenda forward. I mean, and just looking at where Wei was, with the very first big sit down between Jack Kettleman and Baz Carrigan over there at the Carrigan Ranch or excuse me, over at Flat Neck Station where we talked about vaginas. That was one of the best things ever, and it was one of the best moments ever because it really just helped Wade push his way into like the criminal world and like understanding what that meant. And I loved every moment of every story we'd been able to explore with that, with mining, with becoming organized crime and pushing that forward. That's one of the most rewarding parts is building it from the beginning. So it's a testament to what Johnny said. Yeah, I think that everyone when making one of these characters, East or West, you start from nothing, you build yourself up something because that rewarding the RPs through the time you put in.
Absolutely. I
Mhm.
mean, speaking for myself and Z here, what you guys know now as the Vincenzo organization, if you will, it started off as just me and Z, just two Italian brothers that came into the crossing and were trying to figure out how to, live a better life than what they came from. And it's grown into something so incredibly large, and there's so many people that have been involved along the way, including like Johnny said, everybody in this chat, right? Um, it's extremely gratifying kind of to see that progression and kind of know where you were 2 years ago because we have been on the server for a very long time now. And see how far we've come and how we've grown and how we've changed as well. It's not just a linear path. You grow laterally as well. You grow in different directions. Your characters change. I sometimes look back at some videos of 2 years ago where I see myself and I'm just like, wow, Santino is completely different. He's a completely different character now. And that's as a result of all the interactions we've had with so many awesome role players throughout those 2 years that we've been here. So, yeah, it's extremely gratifying. I agree 100%.
And real quick, isn't that like the best part of playing a long-term character like this? Like for me, Gavin was meant to be nobody. I didn't even want him to be a main character. I thought I was going to play him like 6 times. We rolled him originally just because Lang Gang was bullies, and we were like, dude, let's go beat up the bullies. And then you guys robbed us for beating up the bullies, and it was quite interesting. So I think there's been so much gratitude and just gratification for me of playing a character that you didn't intend to. That's what I also wanted to ask. Atop, did you plan on Wei being like your main character, like establishing Wei Industries like you are now, or is that just where things took you?
Oh no, I thought for sure that this whole mining thing was gonna land flat on its fucking face. I mean, this is like before when I made this character and rolled him, it was before, the big mining and the gem thing was, the big pull and push. Like it was just the fact that diamonds were on the server. That was it. It's the only gem. And I thought for sure that it was that type of slow burn building that economy that the way that it was going after the first like 3 to 4 weeks, I'm like, nah, I'll have this guy be around like, twice a month and that's it. But then honestly, it just took off. A lot of people clung to the Chinese role play in that sense, and us doing as much research and stuff that we've done. They clung on to that. I clung on to that. Loved the culture and everything else too. And then soon enough, you stop RPing, you stop making relationships and influencing people, and you get to where you are. He was only supposed to be like a character I have for maybe like a month and played sporadically. I was going to play Dilo as my main, but then fell right in love.
Yeah, I don't think Zip. I did not plan on Zip being Zip. He, yeah, I didn't think Zip would be anything how he is today. This is not what I expected for that character.
Yeah, absolutely.
He was just gonna be a Civ, but then Peppo pretty much kidnapped him and forced him to do bad things. Took a herbalist and turned him into a killer.
Listen, fella.
And now he's the premier Muppet of the server.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
What about you, Pep? Did you plan on Jack being Jack?
You know, I really don't know in that sense. I just want to touch on what you said and what some of the other ones said at the rise, brother. It's all about the rise, man. The worst is finally is achieving your goals. You wanna the journey there is so much better. The early days of Jack and Summers, that whole beef, man, I still look back on it fondly. I know people that were a part of it. It was such a meteoric rise and challenge, and it sort of really, what you call it, uh, like it built the lore. I think not only of our characters, or at least my character, but because I think you already had a lot of pedigree to start off with, but it also shaped in big way the server's lore. Same with DC, same with the DiCenzos. When I first brought Jack, I wanted to do someone that sort of was taken under somebody's wing. And when I joined, I said, okay, who's the top dog? The governor. The governor. Everyone talked about the governor of Van Horn, of the Outlaws. So I really leaned into that, the governor. I remember showing up there and trying to ingratiate myself with with Summers and trying to be taken under his wing. And I think it was starting, and then the whole Holly thing came in sideways and switched it all up, which then eventually created that East versus West thing that I think still to this day is there. It's still in the server.
It's very there. It's very.
Oh, it's 100%.
It's still
it's always been a
East
thing.
and West. It's like the two towers. It's Isengard and fucking and the other one. I forget what the other one is. Sauron,
Mm-hmm.
the Dark
Dude,
Tower, Barad-dûr.
You're so right though, because like honestly, that those two sides govern so differently. And of course, that was with the the question that was asked is like that we have two totally different things. Like I see the East as like organized crime, and then outlaw for like outlaw stuff, if you would, like out west. And it's such a different beast. Like it's so crazy how layered everyone's role play is. Like the DiCenzos have some crazy layers to theirs. Taipan has layers to theirs, and even out west, like even as much as the direction might be more of a simpler, like we need to rob this bank or we need to go and do this, do that. Like there, I feel like there's a lot of structure that goes beyond. It's like a lot of principles, as Jack says, a lot of principle people out there. Like, and of course we have our principles out there, but like we govern mostly through influence, which is pretty crazy. But I love that too, the differentiation between the both, because it's a good mix up. And then there's Valentine right in the middle.
And you need that because, in my opinion,
Valentine,
if you were a character and you joined a server, I felt it before. Not so much now because I think it's in a huge transition state. But before, when you entered, especially in those early days, there was an established order. And what I mean by that is, I feel like when you joined, if you wanted to be an outlaw, like I joined and wanted to be an outlaw, and I heard through the grapevine, you got to go to Van Horn. Van Horn is the place where the outlaws go to work. And DiCenzos, you knew that the Italians ran the city. And so if you want to be a city slicker, you go there and you're going to have to find your way to navigate through this, through this crime family and make sure you don't step on their toes and kind of play that whole game. But if you wanted to be an outlaw, you went to Van Horn to kind of see how the hierarchy was. And I don't know how you were doing this at the time, Johnny, which you wouldn't be able,
Batman, dude.
you wouldn't be able to do this now just because of some of the rule changes. But I love the fact that when you went there, guys, you guys don't notice, there was literally 4 gangs going to this guy for orders, what to do. That way, I like just thinking about you having to juggle and give all of these people direction is insane. But it was so cool, man. Because I remember the first day I showed up, there was literally 4 different gangs, and there was a little bit of contention. Remember V? I think it was V. And they wanted to do like the opening of a bar.
Of course I remember.
And it was just all these different gangs and this tension. But then there was the governor. And what he said went. And he gave Jack some work for money for shine. So I had a mission. So I went and I started off as a shiner because I wanted to do what, I wanted to make the governor proud. So I started shining. That's what Jack's early days were. But there was that, okay, now that's like the power structure that if you want to climb or topple. And that was really special in my opinion. And everybody trembled. I mean, whenever they heard, and everybody played into that. And you knew that if you did fuck up, there would be this grand hand of, there would be like 4 or 5 different gangs ready to come take you out, man. You had that sway. And so I think that was so fucking cool in the early days. And so going up against that, really like made the story, and it was so monumental where it to this day it's sort of you still have the East and West till this day, that lore. Even though there's newer characters that don't really get the East West, they don't get where it came from. It came from those early days, I think.
Yeah.
100%.
That's tough, man. That's like, I know this is a bunch of gang leaders. Guys, when you're role playing and you have, and Z and Croc, you guys know this, everybody's looking at you to make the decisions and like what to say.
Yep.
Dude, you're like, fuck, I don't have to worry about my RP. I have to worry about 10, 20, 30, 40 and make sure that there's enough happening for all of these people to have a bite. And I've always said, and I stick by this, if there is a group that has a lot of people, it's because there's RP to be had there. In the early days, if you showed up and you wanted work as an outlaw, you go to Van Horn, they're going to find you something to do. If you go to the city, you show up at the Chenzo Manor, they're going to find you something to do. So I've always thought that that was a great metric for how much RP a certain person generates. The bigger it becomes, it's big because people know if I go there, I'm going to get some RP and right away there's going to be a story on my lap. So, yeah.
Being a gang leader is being a dungeon master or a game master.
Like a
basically.
quest
You're
giver.
Quest giver,
delegating
yeah,
that
that's
RP.
right.
Yeah, you're literally the biggest NPC. Like I take pride that people come say to that I'm like an NPC character, which is great. I mean, that's the best part about all these wonderful RPers here is that we provide so much opportunity for people to tell their story through, and I think that's super important. Like that's why something like collecting gems or guns or anything else like that, yeah, that's great. That costs money, and it's we're getting all these things. That's awesome. It gives you more power, but like what you get from doing like gem deals with criminal gangs or becoming like the fence of the crossing, I won't say defense or a fence of the crossing, but a big one, is pretty goddamn cool because it allows those people to have their transaction of their role play continue to move forward, or traction, not transaction, but traction to move forward. And I think that's super important. That's why I think everybody in this party does so damn well. Hey, did you hear that pin drop?
A moment of silence. They say a ghost passes by when it's a moment of silence.
Ew, I didn't know that. Well, heck that. I'm filling that void. Something that
Seven
Derek
gummers.
kind of mentioned that I want to touch on that I also want to hear from Z on is it has been really cool, as Pep said as well, seeing this kind of culture when it comes to like West to the Midwest to the East to the Far East. And I think Derek really covered it well. The West still feels like a 1963 womp, 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 outlaw type vibe. And I think something you realize a lot from the West, I don't follow Jack's story, really a lot of the West just for meta, but I feel like the East are often more organized in a way that they don't have a problem with sending people to fight for them and paying money, kind of that organized crime element. And the West still has that outlaw draw to like the principle of if somebody messes with me, we're gonna blood for blood, that whole game. So I think that culture still exists, and it's really cool to see. It's also really cool to see how the DiCenzos have kind of just structured, like how you guys have ranks, and just you can feel the, how do I put it? You can feel the power balance there, I think, more potently than any other organization / gang. So that's been really cool to see develop, at least from a outsider looking in kind of standpoint.
Yeah, I love how the DiCenzos do their shit. Because in Zip said he doesn't understand how the fuck people follow like getting tortured by their own gang and shit like that. Like it's such a like interesting like aspect because like the West is like there's like if you even talk to the law slightly and give like a name, but then you hear like gangs like OOC, you know that like people from the East they'll give information to anyone outside their gang to protect their like family, and like in the West that's just like fuck you if you do that type shit. So there's definitely a huge dynamic in the difference between East and West, and it makes it more defined when you see the difference. Like if for a viewer standpoint watching like the DiCenzos and the Dead End Gang, how they do things compared to like how Peppo and like Saab and Broski do things in like the West, you could see there's a very big difference on the way it's organized, and I love that aspect. I love that it's not like just the same throughout the crossing.
Mhm.
Yeah. I don't know. It's like it's always been kind of like the foundation, right? Like out west, it's always been kind of the same. And back in the day in Armadillo, they also had like the whole, like how do you call it? Like the Van Horn of the West, you could call it that. It's always been in Armadillo, right? It's never been in Tumbleweed and all that, but yeah, it's always been kind of like that way, with outlaws and shit out west. And but it's good to see like more organized crime families like Taipan around the city now. I wish we could have more of that. That'd be really really cool.
Yeah, without bubbles.
And going back to what was saying earlier, that beef with that started sort of the East West culture. It's
Yeah.
funny because when Holly, there was this girl Holly Frost, and it was a point of contention. That's what the fight started over. And in order to sort of get back
Over
at
a
it,
girl.
in order, wait, what did I say?
I just want to point out Holly Frost was the start of the catalyst. Jack Kettleman stabbed the barman in the belly.
No, it was her. It was
But it
her.
was Holly Frost.
So, so what I want to say is that
For all the
what
Gavin
happened
Summers left.
afterwards is the day after Jack stabbed the barman, there was like 30 people out. There was like a $5,000 hit, and everybody was trying to collect that bounty. So I did like a month of Bush RP, and they were going to Van Horn, Guns for Hire and they were shooting down Thieves Landing, and they shot Mills and Clayton, and that's what brought them to us. So that hate for Guns for Hire came from that conflict. That was not something that really started off as a kind of principle. And it was like, I hate these guns for hire. Why are they trying to kill me? I never did anything to them. So why are they trying to hurt me for money? That's why they're coming out. They're going to hand me over to be killed for, a pay. I hate these people. I hate gun for hires. And that's kind of where that started from. And
That's
so
super cool.
and so Mills and Clayton too are like, and Caniclo, these guys showed up 4 or 5 days in a row, gunning us down. They're just guns for hire. We hate these people. They don't even know us. Why do they hurt us? So then we said, no guns for hire. If you're a gun for hire, stay away from us. We don't like you. And that's where it came from. So you can credit that division and that change in philosophy as a result of these things that happened to us by the East. So there's I find that to be really cool that the story is what created that. Because at first it
Yeah,
was, it didn't
foundation.
really it didn't even matter. Gunfire, I don't give a damn. Like, just who cares? Make your money. But
Mhm.
I think that's really cool how that culture now for the East and West, no guns for hire. You got to handle it yourself. It came from that beef initially.
Kind of came before that a little bit too, with Langang being present and them kind of fucking with us a little bit. We've had like a lot of shootouts, and that was like another war, a different kind of war, I think. But
Can you talk
um,
about it?
yeah. I mean, back in the day, the server was, of course, it wasn't the 100 slot, 160 slot server that it is today. It was, what was it, 32 out of 32, something like
32.
that.
Yep.
Yeah, right.
Yep. Good old days.
The good old days. And they even had like an area of play and all that, where they would kind of suggest where you would where role play should be had for the most part. So things like Saint Denis wasn't really like, they weren't really places that you would naturally go to, right? You'd have like Valentine, and then maybe the Strawberry and Blackwater type of era, and then kind of linked to that would be like Armadillo and all that. But yeah, having a meeting with Langang, we learned that they were like the big outlaws of the West. Had a meeting with them. We were like, yo, let's try to work together. And then boom, we get popped in the meeting, and that's when the conflict kind of starts off. There's a vendetta that's created. The Decenzos start being like, okay, these guys out west, we can't really trust them. We're not sure if they're all like this, but for the most part, we've seen that they're kind of like deceiving. So that's where it started for us, at least. The kind of idea or the precedent that the West could, they're not the persona non grata in that sense, right? They're not really welcome in our eyes, which has changed over time a little bit. We were great friends with Jack Kettleman and well, I mean, Summers too, when he was kind of in between everywhere. But yeah, that's kind of where it started for us.
I
Yeah, that
also
was
love the
very
Langang
early
War.
on.
I
Very
loved it.
early. Yeah.
All right, so we did have a question or a topic. So What is everyone's advice for dealing with the growing pains that you had to go through to get to where you're at with your gangs?
Mm.
I can pop it off if you want.
Go for it, Johnny.
Hit it.
Oh, someone gonna say something?
No, hit it. We said
He
hit
said
it. We're
hit
trying to
it.
be
Oh,
funky.
hit him with it.
Hit him with it.
So firstly, I think the biggest thing out of character that every gang struggles with is having consistency. Like, you don't want to make role play about numbers, but that's just the devil's in the details. Like, bigger gangs often make bigger splashes because there's more players to create more RP, right? And to
Mhm.
get a gang that consistently plays together, I think is a struggle that everybody has. And then secondly, at least for me, I think something that was really difficult is aligning goals with characters and what they kind of want out of the role play. Um, I'm a big fan of just talking and brainstorming together, making sure everything's collaborative so that people have a good time. So getting kind of on the same page with people in your gang, whether they're recruited organically or whether they're recruited out of character, I think just getting on that session 0 or that page 1 and saying, "Hey, what do you want out of this RP together?" So we can create that story together is really cool. And then in terms of growing pains, just like from an in character perspective, I think my biggest advice for any role player ever in any sense is always goals and make it something that you can achieve. Do the Matthew McConaughey thing, like my hero's me in 35 years, because that will continue to drive your role play. If you have a goal of, I want to make $10,000, you can do that goal. You can do that goal rather quickly in a gang, to be honest. You could do that goal in a day if you had a crazy ass night. So I just think having a overreaching goal and then constantly coming back to that goal and saying, what can I do in role play that's unique and dynamic and something that people are going to want to role play with is a super valuable tool. So just like a never ending goal and then not giving up on it. I myself have made so many characters that I'm like, yeah, I can't wait to pursue this goal. And then I end up ditching the character. So just keep at it, and eventually the RP gods will bless you. That's my advice.
Fucking Kronk voice, bro. You're killing me.
Yeah, this is my new character. Actually, he's an Elio. He just screams. That's me. That's my next character. No, I'm not doing that.
Yes.
Oh my god. If I can piggyback off of what Johnny's saying, I mean, having a goal is something that every person should do, and have a long term and have a short term. But also remember that everything that you do in role play, like the way that I sit there and think about it, it's like no matter what, how that goal or small goal or large goal, I always say there's three outcomes: the good, the bad, and the middling. Just know that it's gonna be one or the other. Do not think that you are on some sort of predestined path to get exactly what you want out of the story, because it's not gonna happen. You do have people that are on other mindsets, wave sets, playing different characters on top of that too. It is a collaborative effort. So when you're creating that story, make sure that it is something that only shepherds not only to your design, but the people that you are RPing with too. I think that's something that blatantly could say is that it is okay to talk to fellow role players OOC. It is
Mhm.
okay. Like, you don't have to plan your role play, right? But you need to make sure that you are doing your best to pander to the needs of your community that you're a part of, and then on top of that, the bigger community in that aspect and creating role play for them on top of that as well. But yeah, just I think my biggest, let's say, issue or thing that's held back someone like Way was doing something that everybody else didn't want to go ahead and do was very difficult for me. For example, everyone who got onto mine when I first created Way got on dead ass early in the morning, put it on YouTube, and just slammed the G key. Like, that's what mining was. And that wasn't, I felt like something that's a mechanic in game, something you could do in game should be celebrated in the essence of roleplay. So that's when I made Way. And I was like, we're going to try to build that culture. It took me playing Way 5 days out of the week for 3 months to get 6 people in the mine consistently. Those are long RP days where you're just mining for 2 hours with just 2 to 3 people in there. It's like, it's really hard to build that culture. So it's like, whatever you're trying to build, remember to be patient. All right. You are going
Preach.
to fail more than you are going to succeed. That is just the reality of life. It's the reality of roleplay. Is that not everyone's going to be a part of it. Now, I look at Way now, and now I have like 16, 20 people in a mine at a time. And I'm like, God, wherever it came from. Like, that's wild. That's crazy to me. So, just be patient and don't be afraid to mess up, and just know that there's a 75% chance that things are not going to go the way that you want them to go.
Quick question between Derek, how long from starting that mining company until now has it been?
A year and a half.
All right. And I think that's important too, because we can say like, shoot for a long time, let the story develop and stuff like that, but I think we forget how long it actually takes to do this stuff sometimes.
Well, I
Mhm.
think it depends on the type of character you want to make, right?
True.
Some characters, I'm a big fan of making characters that on the sixth session you're going to perma them. It makes a really fun story and can often have baby ripples. So it's kind of just about scoping out how long, like if this is a long-term character or business-based character, etc. But yeah, 100% be patient.
I mean, everyone knows that all my characters are at risk of perming at any time, so
Yeah, as it should be, and also you should get the scene that you want to make sure that you perma too. Like
Mhm.
at the end of the day, that every opportunity that involves a gun being pointed at you, you should be giving the person the opportunity to go ahead and perma. Give them that beautiful scene. Give them that what could be, type of deal. Of course, make sure you reach out OOC to make sure that they're okay with everything and all that jazz too. The precautions and all
Mhm.
that.
Yeah.
But yeah, in essence, yeah, I think that it's a good mindset for any role player. It can happen at any time. But then again, it's their story and however they want to end it can end it.
ZetarkGG?
Can you rephrase the question again? The initial one?
How Here, let me read it.
He's really into chess, probably right now.
So
No. I'm trying really hard not to talk too much because I usually talk way too
Oh.
much.
That's how I
Obviously.
feel. I feel like the
I'm
last
waiting.
thing it was just zip.
I'm gonna
zip,
be the
zip.
last one to talk every time. I'm gonna keep it brief.
I'm gonna
So
be in a
in
competition with you on that one, bud.
yeah. In order
Oh.
to get where Jack was at his peak, how did you deal with the growing pains throughout that?
First of all, they're not growing pains. They're fucking fun. If it's a pain, if it's a pain, do something else. It shouldn't be a pain. It should be enjoyable. Um, Listen, you're starting off. You're fresh. You can do anything you want. Walk around, say hi to every person you bump into. Howdy. One of those people you're gonna have chemistry with. You're just gonna have, and it's gonna click. Sometimes you love somebody, they're your favorite. You guys just don't have chemistry. The tempo on your conversation, something is off. But you're gonna find someone that you have some chemistry with, and get it going. Do something. We got to go down to, um, like I said, I did a Van Horn thing, and have some weaknesses for your character. That's
Mhm.
also a great one. Have some
Mhm.
weaknesses. Be easily tricked. Be, uh, or be easily seduced.
Mhm.
Be an impulsive gambler. The whole story with Jack started off because took $1,000 loan, doubled down on the table, and now owed Summers 2,000 in a half a second. So, um, and we needed that money to buy a horse to do a bank robbery with, so for the getaway. So that's what I would say, and turn everything into like a multi-step process. You want to rob a bank? Find a reason first. Plan it out. You're gonna need better horses. So now you have to buy a horse. Choose the most expensive one. Now you're gonna need some money. Well, how are you gonna get some money? Go and find someone who gives you a job, and that can, and it'll take out a loan. So, add a lot of steps between everything you do. Try to talk to everybody that you bump into, or not. This is just my advice. That's what I do. And
No, I
then,
think that's my
Great
favorite thing
advice.
about your roleplay, Peppo.
Yeah,
That's one of my
it's the
favorite things about
Yeah.
you as Jack Kettleman is that you will start a conversation with every character, and I think that's led to so much in your
It's
roleplay as well. I love it.
literally the best advice ever because a lot of people say hi. Like I say hello to everybody as well, and people just don't say hey back. It's like, guys, the whole thing that we're here is using our instrument of our voice to tell a story, and if we can't start something, we'll go up and punch you in the face and be like, hey, you want to talk? Like,
so,
Yeah.
yeah, and you're gonna rob a bank now. Find a crew. Go out on a limb, find a crew. You don't trust someone, okay, do it anyway. Maybe they'll snitch on you. That'll give you a great story. Maybe they'll mess up. Maybe you guys will become best friends. Maybe by the time the job shows up, they've cursed somebody out and now they're in a problem and you have to decide, am I gonna have this guy's back for so go out on a limb, talk to people, but it shouldn't be a pain. It should be enjoyable. Sometimes being nervous is great too. Being anxious, because that's just exciting. But do that and and start the rise. Start the rise process. Uh, I would say go up against. It's always fun to build, man. Keep going back to what Johnny said. Starting off and build, build. The rise is way more fun. So that's what I would say as far as growing pains. and I'll leave it there for now.
I think we're in that right now, Privy and I. I think we're in the phase of the growing thing.
Oh yeah.
It's like a shitty situation because like it's great for the story of Zip getting just handed his like just being fucked with every time that he does like opens his mouth because he's an idiot. But at the like point, like I want to be able to be like that crazy little Jack Kettleman mentee, like mentoree or whatever that does just fan the hammer. But it gets to the point to where it's like, okay, we're building the gang. We have 3 people going up against 6. It's like I like immediately panic OC about like, okay, is this gonna be like a no valuing life rule break if Zip just fans the hammer on 6 of them? So it's like I haven't been able to do any. I've just been so like stressed out on figuring out like, okay, when is the right time, and it's causing a lot of pacing, but it's also causing this. Okay, Zip isn't gonna do anything. So when Zip finally does get to the point to where he just breaks and goes after everyone, which he's pretty much at the tip of that mountain right now. Like he is just like over getting pistol whipped by people in the West. He's over getting shit for not going to war with the East. Like he's at that breaking point right now. So it's very fun to see him break. And right now it's just like building. Like we had a great interaction with I don't know if you guys want the meta or anything, but pretty much.
No.
Okay.
Let's not give
I want
meta.
literally
Let's.
nothing.
Yeah,
Go
okay.
run.
Pretty
Can I
much
add-
someone joined
Oh.
the gang yesterday that is gonna be very
Okay.
Can I add something
Yeah.
also to my statement for advice, and think about story and plot. So what, again, to piggyback off of what Johnny was saying about having a goal, if you have a goal and you have a destination, you know, a plot to get there, step by step process. So, and thinking of it in story terms, at least that's what I do. I think of it in story terms. How is this going to be significant for my story, and how am I going to spin this for the lore of my character? And I think if you just stick to that as a foundation, you have a goal. How am I going to get there? What are the steps to get there? And let me turn each step into its own little mission and sort of event. So, and yeah,
Yeah.
and talk to people.
I think story goals are really kind of the key, right? Because material goals you kind of get those, and obviously it's okay to have material goals, but they seem to be less gratifying, or at least have seemed like that to me. You know, like if your goal is to make a lot of money, I don't know, you can, like Johnny said, you could do that very easily in the server if you really wanted to, and if you had people behind you, etc. But the story goals is where it's at, you know. Like if you wanted to be known as the baddest gunslinger of the West, that's something that is hard to achieve, and it takes time and it takes consistency. So having those story goals kind of clearly set out for your character as an individual, for your gang as a whole, etc. I think that's really important. And kind of echoing as well, it kind of happens when you're late to answer the question, but having consistency in terms of playing, getting on and actually playing, and having people around you that that are willing to do that with you, and carry their story alongside yours, etc., is super important. I think I was, me and Z are blessed to be actual brothers, so we're aligned already, kind of by default in a lot of ways, and how we approach things, etc. And that helps a lot. Also not aligned in a lot of things, but that helps a lot. Having people that are aligned with you is super important, because as an individual you can only really go so far in a server like this, where it's the gangs that kind of rule in that sense, that kind of drive things in certain directions, etc. Right? So I'm not saying you can't have an impact as an individual, but having people along with you definitely helps, right? So getting people that are aligned with your objectives, your long-term kind of story goals, super important.
Agreed.
Yep. As far as the the reputation, I love what you said right there, because it's hard through a mechanic to sort of get a reputation for, say, being rich. Yeah, you might have a bunch of people, you might actually have a bunch of dollars in the bank, but if you don't have the reputation in character, it means nothing. Being a gunslinger, as far as Jack is concerned, you know, he calls Mills the gunslinger, and that's the message he'll spread. Everybody he bumps into, he says he's the best gunslinger. And I don't care if there's someone actually with a body count way higher, 10 times the amount with better aim. As far as Jack is concerned, and everybody I bump into, story-wise, it's Mills. You know, and I'm using that as an example because so many things, it's all about how you spin the story more than
100%.
anything. There's a war, you can
Yeah.
lose every fight of the war, but if you spin it for your story and for your audience and for your entourage, that's all that matters. I
You
think
did
we
it.
got bent over, folded up, spanked, fucking no lubed by Summers for like a year and a half straight. Jack only ever shot him down once, twice, and that was only a year later. But it didn't matter for our story, our independent story. So, because we spun it however we saw fit, and it's very important, I think, for people not to lose sight of that your story is independent, even though it's a collaborative thing with other people's, and you could spin it however you like, um, and not getting caught up, you know, in the KD, you know, ratio,
Totally.
Mhm.
or how much money you have in the
Down.
bank. As far as we're concerned, the DeGenzos are the richest people. I don't care, you know, even if they have
Right.
$0, they're the family with all the money. Mo or Jiang Wei, I'm
Oh,
sorry, Jiang Wei,
All
but
right, we're not.
or when
We're,
Solomon
we're
had the
not gonna
Cuts
do
Manor,
that right now.
Well,
like
I think that's a
whoever's
good
sitting in
point.
the Cuts Manor is rich. And that's just how it goes. It's like
yeah.
I agree.
reputation and story is so much more important. Or Gavin Summers, when he was in prison, I was saying that his money is endless. No one knows.
Well,
It has no
Yeah.
end.
Oh,
So
it was
I
very,
kind go ahead.
yeah, sorry. Getting a little hyped up here.
no, you're good. I want to piggyback what you said, Pep, in a very brief form.
I'll
And
piggyback off
kind
him
of with
too.
Croc as well. He said if you want to be the best gunslinger, I promise you, if you are a gunslinger who gives a badass monologue or gives me a scene or gives me a cool dialogue where we both interact, I'm going to remember you tenfold compared to some guy who has a 9-0 KD, as Pep is referencing. Like, if you keep
Yep.
telling everyone Mills is that gunslinger, that lore and those scenes that Mills gives will give him that reputation. It's people remember scenes, people don't remember KD. Like,
Mhm.
on paper, I, as Gavin Summers, have been in far less gunfights than maybe everyone in this room. But it's the fact that I'm fucking out here screaming at you that people talk about it still. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? It's people remember scenes, they don't remember Katie. That's my quote.
Although I really liked what Osario did with El Capitan, because it was just this character that randomly came in basically with the island, and he had to build from scratch. But he became this really big person who everyone was just like, you know what? I want to topple him because I have what he has. I want what he has. And I think that was really cool how, you know, everyone just sort of went along with it. And as much as it's our story to create, I think it's really up to all the rest of us, our peers, kind of allowing other people to go along with that story, right? Because if you say, "Oh yeah, I'm," you know, like, not to throw him under the bus, but I don't think he'll mind. Billy Blasters, right? He was like, "Oh yeah, I'm gonna be the best outlaw in the West," and it's like, yeah, okay, you know, like it's also in how he carries himself. So I think it's just really cool to see how we all can react to certain personalities and everything.
Only
Like I
man
don't,
to rob a bank with a hot air
yeah.
balloon and kill Ripley and almost even Malone, man. I'm just saying. Billy Blunders has ascended.
just saying, yeah,
Literally. He
you're not
ascended
wrong,
into the
dog.
sky, man. He
He killed
ascended into the
Ripley.
sky.
Big
Yeah.
One of the
money
best
moves.
premise, dude. Oh
And
my
like me
god.
with Kaysen's character
And we
Mills,
put
like
respect
I'm
on his name.
always afraid when I'm in a scene with him. And I think that just shows like how good he is at portraying the character he wants to portray. And I think it's just, you know, with that.
Billy
But
Blast is a serial
Croc?
killer.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just reading chat.
How aren't we still on the advice of dealing with growing pains?
Yeah, Z and Croc, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Croc covered it.
Okay.
Wait,
okay.
Z didn't say his answer to the advice part of the growing pains.
Oh, welcome
Yeah.
back.
You guys
We
have
wanna-
grown like crazy.
We want to hear Z's. He can't just pass it on to Croc.
I think a growing pain, if you want to call it that, with us has been kind of like keeping people a little bit motivated. And I think that's like 50-50, right? You know, when you're in a group, you know, you're this leader of this gang, and you know, in our case, motivation is a huge thing. And And yeah, I mean that's something that we've kind of always fought with and tried doing. And I think part of that is just kind of being open, like one of you said, kind of just putting yourself out there a little bit, exposing yourself for shit to happen. Not necessarily having to. We've learned this over time. Um, Riding six deep isn't really necessarily something that's going to always bring you the best role play. So we walk the streets now with like 3 fucking people, 2 people, maybe on our own, hoping that something could potentially happen. Um, to seek that kind of motivation as well, right? You get robbed or somebody comes in and screws you over, boom, that immediately, uh, creates an arc right there, or you have to you continue the role play with that person, um, and that brings motivation, right? So stuff like that, kind of just expose yourself a little bit more. That's something I would put on the table.
I love it when
Mm.
something very small, something very like tiny that no one would have expected would cause months of RP. Like I
Like
think
blowing up an ice
that's
cream shop.
Yeah.
right. And it's just like you never expect when you're going to do that, like that's going to be the outcome. And I think those are the funnest arcs, because there's the arcs where you're like, okay, that happened, you dive into it, right? And then you're like, okay, this is going to be a big arc, this is going to like push it, and then it ends up being like a decent arc. But then you have something very small that just ends up being like 10-15 hours of just planning for this one little thing. And it could be because someone like just it could be the most mundane thing, and it's just so fun to see like where it explores. And it's up to everyone involved to like take that and just run with it. So I think
Mhm.
I really love that the fact on this server, more than most servers I've been on, that it's just those little tiny things could impact such a huge story.
So that kind of goes into the next question then. Um, so what's your approach to keeping all the scenes fair for your gang, but also giving the law an opportunity to catch you after doing things?
Mm.
I can go first unless anybody else wants to.
Um,
I just
Go
like
for it.
being first because I don't have to worry
and
about it.
you're not last.
And I'm not last, exactly. Can you repeat the question for me, Privy? I had it in my brain and then I lost it.
I did add in a little podcast question so y'all can read it.
sweet.
I'll be popping those in whenever I see them. Um, and there's a lot more to the beginning of it. So someone said, my gang has been having a lot of success with its plots and is heavily wanted for many charges, but we keep getting away from law. I've been trying to do more reckless plans to create opportunities to get caught. What is your approach to keep it fair for you and your people, but also give the law an opportunity to catch you? And I did come up with an idea if you guys want me to start with that one?
Yeah,
Sorry to
totally.
take your thunder, Blams,
Yeah.
but,
No, you're good. No, you're totally good.
Um,
Yeah, go.
I feel like having kind of a secret blunder, planned, especially, like, as the leader per se, or maybe even, someone in the group, just to kinda throw a wrench in your plan, and then maybe, have an issue. Say, like, a lot of people like the explosive tanks. Say maybe you have a plan, okay, we're gonna, run through these trees and we're gonna explode tanks after we go past them. Maybe someone slips up and shoots one too early and they fall. Well, that causes you to have to, whoever's in the front to come back and have to help them, and maybe laws come in and, something like that.
Totally. I'm gonna piggyback what Peppo kind of said earlier and think about everything narratively. Something that I experienced while playing Summers was at points, and it kind of falls into like managing your gang's goals as a group. And I often find myself role playing with a lot of other role players who have their own goals and desires and all this stuff, and it creates really cool internal conflict for the gang. But at the same time, when you're trying to push your own plans as a leader, sometimes that internal conflict is kind of inevitable. So to kind of piggyback what Peppo's saying, think about it narratively. I recommend writing your climb, right? How many bank robberies and what's going to make this final one the big bang for a finale? Every TV show, every movie, play, plot you've ever watched has had the 5-act play structure of rising action. It's the same thing like if you eat 30 steaks in a row, eventually they're going to be bland. But if you have 8 really good steaks in a row and at the end it's the best one, make that your scene. So I would say, hey, write out a story and find a way to organically get caught. For me, I'm not crazy about staff intervention in plan scenes because I think that it takes away a little bit of the organicness or the surprise. Something that I love about being a role player is the surprise of the scene. Because sometimes
Mhm.
stuff happens in RP and your jaw's on the floor and you're like, "What just happened?" So like for me, if I was, it's always referencing the Del Lobos, so I won't make it specific for them, but I would say send a good telegram that you're moving to somewhere where it's completely fair fighting ground and you have it out. Making things as even playing ground for both parties. If you're trying to write that kind of lose moment or that defeat moment, telegrams are one of the best things I think we have at Wild RP as role players because it allows you, especially as a criminal, to make role play for yourself. So if you're Kettleman gang and you're riding west and you do want that altercation with law, you can pretend to be a civilian and say, Kettleman gang was spotted riding west towards Tumbleweed, blah, blah, blah. And that allows you to kind of create a scene on your own. So really it's just kind of about like thinking about how you want to set up your scene to lose. And then I always find it's a lot more gratifying if you do know that it's coming rather than sometimes you just get downed in the worst ways. And you're like, well, I'm going to spend 13 days in Sisika for me pressing E while two people were riding a horse and you're real sad about it. So it's always fun to kind of plan your loss. That's my 2 cents.
Yeah, I'm
Mhm.
to piggyback off that, the Telegram system is the best thing for that, for an organic way for to make that happen. Because again, like Johnny said, you tell your own story. We did it with getting a shootout with the law, and we sent them 3 telegrams from 3 different telegram stations on a trail. So it's like we stopped in Rhodes, said something, stopped in I think it was up in Annisburg, and then we stopped over in Wallace. So it kind of gave them a trail to where they need to get to. They got to Hagen, and then we had a massive shootout with the rest of the law that were there because people like Taipan aren't like the on the run type of people and whatnot. We're more like preserve honor and type of deal, and have an honorable battle because that's a lot that goes down a lot better for your soul, if you would, than anything else. So we that led there because the telegrams led them there. There's not really so much you more you can do other than maybe let's say you catch somebody, if you're an outlaw, you catch somebody, you rob somebody, but you down one, but you don't down the other, and then be like, then tell them to get out of here, and like they'll go and run to the law, and they can go tell somebody from there, depending on where it is. There's so many different scenarios and how that could work, but yeah, I agree. The telegrams are a great way to do it. That or leaving somebody to send a message, and then that gets the law on you.
Cheever actually taught me that. Aurora, she pretty much reached out and said like, hey, to give them like, I didn't think about it. I didn't think about doing the telegram system, but ever since then, like I'll even send telegrams to people that are looking for me as just I would leave it blank and it was like saying something or people that the law one is the best one to do it with because you don't want to just do something crazy and just be fine and go somewhere and be alone. Like there's that fun moment where everyone celebrates after the bank job, but then you want to be able to leave that spot and immediately immediately get into like that interaction with the law because it's no fun just being able to hit the bank and then law goes after you, they end the bank job, they go back to the sheriff station, they check tip line and something else is happening. Like it's fun to keep it like a little, like have the pacing go a little bit more where there's like the actual hunt. It's why I love doing anything with Peppo because it was pretty much law is coming no matter what. No, the second the Kettlemans went into town and did something, law was after us. And I didn't realize how it was happening when I first joined. And later, Cheever was like, yeah, we send concerned citizen telegrams saying like a group of 6 rode off with their guns out, seems like in a hurry and stuff like that. So I love 100% the fact that the telegram system is as good as it is because I've been on servers where it is not that good. And yeah, I think it's like perfected on Wild.
Oh, and details, guys. Details.
Mm-hmm.
Love of God.
Details.
If you have a big fucking scene where you just shot 200 rounds, make some details of there being
Yeah.
200 rounds fired here.
Oh
Or
no, the
if someone
details
gets
are there
shot with a
now
knife.
with the no, they exist now for the
That is
gunshots.
true.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah, no,
With the
which is
YEF system.
which is great. I'm mostly just talking about like if you're a criminal, other than like what you have on your person, like you
Yes.
tell a story through telegrams, but you also can tell a story through that too. Like
Yeah.
leave as many details as you can. If you are leaving going east and you know you're going east, leave the 5 horses hoof prints traveling east, and then like leave multiple details, like even more so now because now we have the proximity stuff. Leave details on the road. Like feel free to
Yeah.
go like a quarter mile and leave another detail,
Mhm.
cigarette butts or whatever, something that tells that story. Because there's been I know on the law side, it's always been a valid complaint, and especially as well as for other people too, like us. If you're trying to tell a story with us or anything else like that too, like if you are on the trail, leave a trail. Always leave something behind because someone is going to find it. Always have
Right.
that mentality.
Because even blood drops, if you get shot in that interaction, you could do blood drops, especially if you're planning on staying close to that proximity. It gives them something to follow. And I think I was talking to someone, and they were like worried about, like, they wanted to set a scene up, like, I forget like the context of it, but they were like worried about doing too many details. And I like get it to a point to where if you have like 15 all right next to each other, but if you have it and going into a direction, law will know to follow it. And like I think what's important is like if you're gonna do the detail trail to where you are, like either blood or hoof prints or anything like that, as long as you make it at where you turn in to wherever you're going, or like in the fork in the road, or if you split off into the woods, as long as you make it at the road going like, okay, the footprints head west, I think that's all that's important. And you don't have to like overcloud the entire road with the details one every so often, because if they lose the trail, that's RP of them. Okay, they lost the trail. Like if you spread them
Right.
out too far, it gives them RP. Like, okay, let's double back. Let's keep looking, keep your eyes out, try to pick up the trail again. And it causes, even if it's like a 5-minute delay for them, that's 5 more minutes of, if you're in the woods somewhere ready to get in the shootout, you're talking like, okay, are they coming? And it builds up the energy for those situations so much more when there's that time in between.
Yeah, when I had one of my characters in Sisika, something really big happened, but it was around a time where there was really not many guards around and everything like that, so I wanted them to be in on the story, and they actually did talk to me about it later, in character, and what I did was, what happened was at the very back of a building, barely anybody walks by, so at every single turn, I put drips of blood. It started out really small, right? Little drops of blood around here, and then moved over. Well, there was a bloody uh, cape or whatever, and then it got to be more and more blood, and then I had the end result at the end of it. And so I think it's really important to make sure when you know it's just it's really hard sometimes when it is a very large area, but maybe then if you want to get caught, kind of just add things in. Add in if you did end up getting shot or something, then get tired really easy. It's just giving yourself more issues to have to deal with, then, I think that will definitely help with getting caught. Is, even other people may get upset by it, like, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe," whatever in character, but, it's okay. It's definitely okay for people to, be hurt and have issues and stuff like that.
If if I may interject here,
Mhm.
and so I might have a controversial opinion here.
Do
It's
it.
not controversial, but so we're talking about the RP now, the chase, the rise. So far we talked about the rise being the fun part. Now, when someone is wanted, is the fun part making the arrest, or is the fun part the chase? Sometimes it serves story better for the person not to be arrested, while the law is engaging. Like, so you have interactions, but you just slip their fingertips, and that also brings a lot of RP. I think I'll use you as an example, Johnny. The second time around, when the second chapter of, when Summers was released, there was again a meteoric impact that he had, because there was this constant him being on the run and not being busted. Well, we took him not being busted and spun that crazy. Someone came and told Jack he got a deal with Cash that he's gonna get another 2 weeks to do whatever the fuck he wants, and at the conclusion of that, he's gonna turn himself in. Obviously, on the OOC level, we know that's never gonna happen, but in character, him not going to prison. Now, Jack, I remember pulled up on the DiCenzos and he's like, "Do you guys know about this deal? He's got a carte blanche for 2 weeks. He can do anything he wants. And they're not going to arrest him. Meanwhile, they're coming after us for every little infraction." And I was getting ready to kill Cash based on this to punish him for cutting a deal like that. And I think a lot of the RP that happened during that episode, which was this reign of terror, you might say, by Summers, it wouldn't have had effect if after the first two shootouts he was arrested. And sometimes, being on the run for longer, I think, serves the story way better, in my opinion. And you can still have interactions with Law in between that, and Law can have interactions with you without the goal being, we're going to arrest you and charge you. Take the person, you question them. Imagine, let's say the DiCenzos are highly wanted, knocking on the door. They're like, uh-oh, is this it? We're going to get arrested? Maybe the arrest doesn't happen because the evidence isn't conclusive enough, but I'll give you an example, and then I'll stop talking. When I played Coyote for a bit, there was like Daniela Fantoni apparently attacked the Cucamonga kid. They beat his ass. They robbed him. They took all the stuff. And I have a confession, but I only have one side of the story. And I had this interaction with Daniela saying, I was hinting that I knew it was her. And basically, this thing was, I know it's you. I'm fucking sure it's you. I just can't prove it. So now you walk. But we had this really fucking cool scene. And I was like, this is sick, And she knew I knew. I knew that she knew that I knew. But I thought I don't have the proof yet. I can't prove it because it's your word against his. So for now, you walk. But I had an awesome scene. There was no arrest needed. And, so scenes don't always have to end in an arrest. They don't always have to end and you go into Sisika. It can continue. And sometimes it does need to end. But as long as, when we approach, I think, law crim, it should be the same. It shouldn't be law. It should be player to player. It doesn't matter what role you're playing, what service you're, a civ, a crim, or a lawman. It's a good RP scene and it serves the story. That's all that matters. That's it. Period. That's my opinion. Thank you for attending my TED Talk.
My favorite, like one of my favorite things with being wanted was when we were at war with the DiCenzos. And it was when we were facing, I think Zip was facing 13. It's after we shot down Sands, after you shot Sands unarmed, and they blanket charged all of the people that were at Shady Bell with the 7 OOC days. Just knowing that we have to worry about the DiCenzos, law, everything, like moving was so fun to RP. Like we can't stay at this camp, and like trying to even meet up with you, because you are the fucking worst person when trying to meet up with, because you'll send, okay, go to the fork, right? And then so we get that telegram 30 minutes later, and then we go there, we wait for you to get there, but then we go check telegrams, and it's like, okay, we move to this part, and it's like, okay, running back and forth, and then you're traveling like alone. And it just makes it to where you're not just being hunted by people that are probably going to torture you and kill you, but you're being wanted by law, which will put you away and you won't be able to be there for your gang. So I think to answer the question, I think there's times where the arrest is the sweeter part for the RP, because it forces that closure when the wars or whatever happens, when it just doesn't seem like there's an end yet. Like, the way the fucking DC and KG war ended is so fucking funny with the mountain and everything like that. Like, just hearing Jack and James come down from the mountain saying the mountain won was just so confusing at first. And I think that's, like, a fun way to, like, end it. But another good way to end it is also getting locked up in Siska when the gang goes away and it's like, okay, well, we're out of the fight for now. Like, there's not much you could do. So I think it just depends on what is happening. But for me, the outlaw part of it, the being chased, hunted by law, is like my favorite thing to do. I think being wanted is so fun, especially when you're looking at OOC time.
So I think this is like another really good example of East versus West, or maybe not that. Maybe it's more like city gangster versus, cowboy / outlaw RP, because I mean, I'm hearing all of you say, like, being hunted down by law and, being out there wanted and stuff like that. And I think the reality for us is a little bit different. We have a different way of interacting with law because of the way we've kind of established the RRP. Um, we don't tend to be chased literally by law, right? Like we don't get into those situations where we're running away literally from law. For us, it's more of like that crime investigation kind of scene with law, where Peppo, I think you gave a perfect example earlier with Coyote and Daniela, where it's like you're interrogating us, you're asking us questions, and you're trying to piece together a story where you have a really good inclination it probably is us, but you don't have a full evidence or a full set of details that will allow you to make an arrest. And that's our main interaction with law when it comes to crime, right? And obviously there are certain things you can do in that sense that can make that interaction lead to you getting arrested, right? You can get caught in a lie, in a blatant lie. That's probably the easiest. You can contradict yourself. Like if a law person asks you a question or asks you to tell a story of what happened, you say it one way once, and then a day later, if they ask you the same question, you tell a different story or a slightly different story, so you can get caught in that lie, that contradiction, etc. Like that's our chase with the law. That's kind of like that cat and mouse, uh, you know, crime investigation detective kind of thing that we have to deal with when it comes to the law. So it's a very different thing. We yeah, it's kind of fascinating actually hearing all of you talk about that, because we don't have that kind of cowboy chase me down on horseback kind of thing with law. It's very different for us.
It's because most of the gangs out west are very blatant about their crimes. They are no masks. Like I'm fucking Zip Quill. I'm robbing you. I'm shooting down. Like it's very different than the organized crime, because you guys are moving like slick in the city, right? So you guys are moving like at a whole different pace than what like at least Zip does. I mean, I know Peppo too.
Yeah.
He's very I'm fucking Jack Kettleman, like shoot you down and walk away slowly type shit. But in
Yeah,
the
and
East,
then when the
it's
law confronts you, you say, "Yeah, it was me. I shot that person down or whatever." Right.
right,
Whereas for us, it's more of like it's that kind of what do you call it? Like that that kind of
Prove
clandestine
it.
approach to it. Like no, I wasn't there. What are you talking about? Who the
right,
hell
Right,
do you
right.
think I shot Zip? What the hell are you talking about? Hell no, I was with my ma. Oh,
No, I
something.
haven't seen your
Like
daughter.
exactly. And
right.
there's so many layers to that as well. It's not as simple as that. Like we can get false witnesses involved in everything. Like yeah, go ask this person. I was with them, and there's like we have an alibi or something. So it's a
Oh,
whole different dynamic involved with it. It's
Yeah,
a whole different playing field. It's a whole
Uh,
different thing. It's
that's
awesome.
that's a good
kind
one.
of changed for us though. Back in the day, we were a little bit more outlawy than we are today.
For sure. Yeah.
Right. So that's kind of changed, but yeah, that's kind of the chase that we have. Like Croc said, we also live in a big ass fucking house down the street from the sheriff's department, so it's not really hard for them to come knocking on our doors, you know. But yeah,
Yeah, I mean, we could commit like massive crimes. Like we could murder. Like obviously, that's like probably the worst crime. Like you can murder somebody, and like I could walk by law
You
for
did murder
probably a week.
somebody.
We did murder somebody, and we walked by law like for a week, no problem. But then eventually we get caught because something falls through in their investigation, and they're piecing together things that will lead them to the arrest eventually, right? But we don't run away. We don't run away and hide or anything. We're kind of out in the open. We're suspects. We're suspects for a crime, and being a suspect for a crime is an awesome thing to be with the law, because you get all these questions. They come up to the house. They ask us to come over here and let's talk, etc. It's a whole different dynamic.
bro,
It's pretty cool.
they put a fucking trumpet to my head, all right, and they played that shit like for like 5 minutes, and then Cesare wasn't having it. He was going crazy. You know what I mean? So
That's real stuff,
Oh
actually.
man.
Music torture is real. I want to
yeah,
kind of
Yeah, that's
piggyback
great.
what the DeCenzo said and just kind of shout them out for a second. Number one, it's been really cool to see Santino and Cesare's evolution, because it's almost like a young buck DeCenzo story to now the more established mob boss kind of feel. So that's been really cool to watch just throughout the years. And now number
Oh yeah.
two, I think the difference in
thank you,
that
bro.
culture of West Outlaws to Summers to you guys is I think it's a testament to how you guys do your RP. You guys do hold some of that mob culture within your, I think, ideology. Like you don't whack cops, you just don't do it. That's mob mentality in most 1990s mob movies. So it's a
Yeah.
really cool dynamic to see the difference of how everybody does crime. And then there's freaking Way up there who just does really sneak. I did some sneaky crimes myself. Me and Derek are both guilty of probably a lot of sneaky crimes. So yeah, it's really cool to see how everyone does crime
I
differently.
did have a question for Croc and Zatark, just because I'm really interested. I think your at least in Saint Denis, it's one of the first areas where we've had groups like yours. Did you feel like you had to be more outlawish just to start? Or is that just because you hadn't really figured out your new structure yet?
So yeah, when we first started role playing on Red Dead on Wild, we were just kind of testing the waters with everything. You know, we've done some outlawy stuff. We've robbed people. We've you know, there was when the trains were introduced, we did a train. You know what I mean? And then we kind of like started molding it into, okay, let's you know, how can we fit the Cosa Nostra type of thing into a western like this? And yeah, we kind of just stayed away from it. We set rules. We're not going to do banks. We're not going to be doing X or Y things that you know that outlaws might do. And we're going to try to do crime in a different way a little bit. And that was part of the, like, again, a growing pain, like a challenge, right? Because you don't get to enjoy the criminal activities that maybe others can, right? So yeah, that's kind of how we started off a little bit.
Yeah, it's really tough as well because I've never robbed the bank.
I was just
I've
thinking,
never.
how the hell you guys never?
Oh.
I can't do any RP if I can't rob a bank.
Yeah, I've never
Yeah.
run moonshine, and you know I think
Oh.
I robbed like one person probably in like the
Wait,
first
you've never
week of
run moonshine?
I've never
Nope.
run like moonshine.
Nope.
This
Actually,
whole
run
You
moonshine arc. You shitting me
Jesus.
right now?
But
you
we
need
did.
to
So
create a
we did
one-off
have
character.
we did have
Just
a
run
moonshine
shine.
arc. We did have a moonshine arc, and it was actually super involved with Peppo
But you didn't run it.
But we didn't
Nope.
run it. We had we took care
Humble,
of a
humble
different
on the way.
aspect of that
That's
whole
nuts.
moonshine enterprise.
I love
It was very it's very interesting to put those kind of limitations on your characters. Like you will not do that certain kind of thing
100%.
because it's your identity, right? You create a character with an identity, and you say, okay, well, you know, if I am this, then I will not ever do something like rob a bank,
Yep.
right? It just and you stick to it, and that's hard. It's very hard.
I had that pain as well as Summers because every time people would be like, "Let's rob a bank," I'd be like, "I have so much money. Why am I being here? This is, you know." I'm like, Why is this a thing for me?" So I totally am on that train. It's really it's rewarding, but also frustrating when you're like, "Shit, man, I'd love to just rob a bank or
Yeah.
do one of those
I
things," you know.
think that makes all of our characters more believable though, because everyone, no matter what, has that creed that they're just like, "Nope, I'm not gonna do this." Right? And so if you have some things that your character just will not do, I think it gives them a lot more humanity.
Yeah.
For sure,
Because
yeah. They're pillars of RP that you create for yourself that you just cannot, you should not ever really break down unless something drastic happens, right? And if
Mhm.
it's justified in kind of an RP story sense, then you know, it could even be great if a pillar gets shattered. But you know, unless that happens, you really got to stick to those pillars, I think.
that's what you
Yeah.
guys did with Enola, because Zip was like leaving the Kettlemans because he was over war. Like he didn't want to go to war. The whole sissy thing with Zip fucked him up about war. Like he just wasn't having it. So he just wanted to be the Quill family, rob banks, rob trains, do kind of like what the Dead End Gang was doing. And then he comes to his sister being killed. So it's like, okay, we're going to war. Like, and then the everything in the West. So it's fun when you start building that foundation and going to where like you want your character to not fall into a place, but then something happens so drastic that it forces your character to be like, well, okay, fuck the whole plan, and then you rob the banks to fund the war, right? Because we had bought like a fuck ton of guns from Wallaby, and I pretty much was just throwing them away just so that we have like the RP reason to be like, okay, we need more guns. Like, I think we've gone through like 18 Lancasters that Zip bought for the war that no war has even been started yet by Zip. It's just he gets arrested for doing something stupid in Blackwater and loses all the guns because they're all marked with law guns. So it just adds to that RP of like, okay, we need more guns, because Zip's an idiot and keeps losing them for shooting someone in the middle of Valentine or Blackwater. And it just causes that to like continue. I love it when a pillar gets shattered. It's my favorite part about RP, and it's my favorite part about just the unscriptedness, or however the fuck you say that, of the stories that are happening. Right.
Yeah, I one of the pillars that Taipan has is that we don't attack the Lao Bai Ching, which is the common folk, and that just means that we won't rob or steal or anything else like that. And that's been like a big pillar for us. That's why I like that none of our circle don't rob anyone. Like we haven't robbed anything. I think one of us has been a part of a bank robbery once, and that's about it. But like I'm really curious to see when the day that Taipan, if ever, that pillar breaks, because then that's a completely different grouping. Like that is no longer as much organized crime as it is, just crime.
Yeah.
Somebody's got to put a gun to my head and I'll rob a bank with you, just for the record. All right, just
Oh, there you go.
You know what I mean?
Deal.
All right.
That's how Zip will start the war with you guys.
30 and
He'll
0,
take
baby.
you hostage and
Oh my
force you to
God.
rob a bank.
30 and 0.
Dude,
I'm gonna-
celebrity bank robbing, like you just like rob like way fucking Cesarian.
Oh my
everybody else,
God.
but you're just like, you go robbing a fucking bank with me today. All right.
Yeah.
All right, put that fucking gun down. What do you mean with that though? Safe shit? Okay. Does this safe have beans in it? It better have motherfucking beans.
Oh my God. That scene in the mines was amazing.
What's we're talking
With
about
the
having all
questions, and we had like 30 people in there.
Dude, that was
Is
the
it the
stinkiest
balls,
corner of
Chin?
that mine ever, dude. How you guys had literally 9 to 10 outlaws all crammed in that little nook in Gaptooth, and I have my whole team over here, we're all spread out, have a decent amount of room, and I'm like, how are you guys? This corner smells like shit. It's so many people. Oh my god, it was a great time.
Oh, it
I love
was.
the mining trips are a good time. I enjoy when I get the good mix of criminal, because like I feel like mining is one of those things that's universally good for everybody, no matter what path you walk. And I think that's very it's very interesting that have that camaraderie in there too. Question for you guys, because I'm very curious on how you guys define it as well. Like what defines the outlaw and what defines organized crime? Like in your guys' eyes, because I've heard it
Ooh.
The
discussed
principle.
differently. Is it the principle of things?
I mean,
It's
go
motive
ahead,
based.
Croc.
I think it kind of pivots off of what we were
You
just
guys,
talking about a little bit.
if you have questions and
Derek,
it gets
because-
overshadowed,
a similarity between
shadowed,
us and Taipan is that we don't rob
feel free to
the
join the
common folk, as you
Discord.
will, right? Like we don't
There's the
victimize the
link.
common folk.
there's a questions
we have a
tab
good
in there.
reason
If
to
you guys
do
want
it,
to put
right?
questions
Then
in there,
yeah, somebody
you can
innocent
add,
could maybe get hurt.
say
but most
who
of the
you
time,
want
like
to
we react
ask the question to,
to other criminals.
if it's for
Most of the
everybody.
time when we get into conflict and hurt people, we're hurting other criminals, right? And we're not robbing, we're not like highwaymen, if you will, right? We're not like that, those people on the street robbing people that are coming by, or robbing a train or robbing a bank. We're kind of doing that under the counter kind of form of crime, which is maybe undermining people or hiring an assassin or beating them up, or something like that would it's not as direct. It's more of like an implied criminal kind of road, if you will, versus a direct criminal road, which is the outlaw scheme, right? So I think that's probably the difference there, in my opinion, in terms of how the crime RP is executed.
I've
Yeah.
changed my answer just from Croc's answer. The difference, Derek, is rules. It is rules.
Yes.
The rules right there are that you don't rob common people. The rules are that you want to make money. If you look at a lot of early Westerns and early Western films, what defines the outlaw is freedom. He doesn't have any rules. He doesn't follow the laws of man, which are just rules. So I think that's the biggest difference. I think a traditional outlaw gang in 1900, late 1800 was just about freedom. It was a bunch of guys and gals living out in the woods committing crimes because there weren't enough people to really enforce law out there.
Right.
It was just about seeing what you could get away with. And there's not many outlaws you find in history that were like after that pursuit of money. Like Billy the Kid's the biggest one we hear about, and he was really just like a wild card. He was like, I'm Billy the Kid, and he just did very crazy things. But he was also very charismatic with government officials. He's a crazy being to read up on. But I think that's the defining factor is rules. It's
cool.
a set of
That makes
rules
sense.
that we
Yeah,
follow.
That makes sense.
I was just very curious because I know everyone has a different definition of it. I've heard people talk about organized crime, say that they're organized crime, and that's like I don't see them as organized crime type of deal. And I was just very curious to see how it's defined for you guys. That makes sense. That makes sense.
I also use Jack as my reference because I was like, okay, what's the difference between Jack and Taipan and DiCenzo's? It's that Jack's free. He does what he wants. There are no rules that really govern who he is as a character. Same for Summers. It's like I can break these rules, so I'm going to.
That's right. Like, do something about it if you don't like it. That attitude. But it was cool because I was talking about the same subject in character. It might have been to Zip, Jack was saying all an outlaw means is you live outside of the law
Mm-hmm.
of the established
Right.
government at the time. So you can be a frontiersman in the woods and you're an outlaw because you say, I don't care what laws they're making. I'm living my own life out here. I have my own set of rules that I live by. I have my own principles that I live by that drive me. That's all a principle is. It's a fundamental truth or foundation to a system of belief. So my rules are my own. And it just sometimes my rules overlap and are the same as the rules of society, but sometimes they're not. I'm always going by my rules. I'm living life the way I want. And if someone doesn't like it, they better put me in prison or kill me. And that's kind of the attitude.
Yeah, an organized crime would be more of like, okay, we've accepted the rule of law in the general sense of, hey, this is society now, like society is now a city, society is now, police everywhere, police will catch you, there's less petty crime, etc., because there's more police presence and just the overall presence of law. But then organized crime comes in and says, okay, we accept this. How can we play this game and still also impose our own way of life, right? Our own desires, our own will, if you will, on this playing field, which is dominated already by an established presence of law, right? So it's a very different thing. You guys live outside of law. We live inside of law, but we are still both criminals, right? And we still both kind of
Yes.
undermine that presence of law in a very different way.
That's what I
And,
was gonna add. I think one group is working with the law to still do crime, and one is working against the law to do crime. Not necessarily with, like, you're talking to them, but, like, like you said, you're still
Coexisting with
following
the law.
yeah, coexisting, there you
Right,
go.
yeah, coexisting
Yeah.
with the law and still doing crime. Yeah, exactly.
Mhm.
I think that was one of my biggest struggles as playing Summers is that he's a character that wants so much revenge on specific lawmen that there were so many times in my story where I'm like, I could easily stir the pot and send a telegram that Jack is here or that the DeCenzos or Taipan or any of these other criminal organizations were about, and you could provide information anonymously. Once again, going back to how the Telegram system just really makes cool RP. But I couldn't do that as Summers because that's not something he could do. So groups that do use the law in secret are very spicy. That was my main point.
totally. And like the rule of, of the outlaw, or at least Jack, okay, or I'll speak on Jack, is if we're going to engage in criminal activity, and let's say, and you're going to engage in criminal activity, we are now breaching the established rules of society. And so, because of that, you're turning your back on society, and therefore, you're not allowed to go and profit, for example, by using the law to help you. At least for Jack, if you're a civilian and you go to the law because you've been wronged, there's no problem. That's what you're supposed to do if you're living the right way. But as soon as if you're gonna get in trouble, you have a grievance, you're gonna go and shoot somebody, and then when they come to get you, you run to tell the police or the law, you're going down. There's no, you're going down, and your reputation, your nose is gonna go in the dirt. That's not allowed. So that's, for example, a rule of the outlaw. Is yeah. So, well, what you guys take on that? Is organized crime similar in that way?
Oh, I think that depends on who you ask. Because if you ask us, then yeah, I think we have um, Peppo with your RP and ours is the DeCenzos. We've had that common pillar where
Yes.
we don't like you said. You when you cross that line, you turn your back on society and for us it's different motivations, but that leads to just you're not working with the law. You cannot work with them, and it's one of our pillars, right? But I know that if you would ask this question to Taipan, it would be a different answer. But we're both still kind of organized crime, right? So it's different. It depends on who you ask.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To piggyback off of that, just to answer what Croc is just finger pointing for. What the fuck, man?
My bad,
But
my bad, my bad.
Put him on the spot, bro.
no, the law aspect of things, criminal code, right, is something that is defined for everyone a little bit differently, right? The Hong or Taipan in this sense, our grouping, our saying is may the Hong live for 10,000 years. That means do everything in your power to make sure that prosperity is something that you celebrate all the damn time. So criminal code is just not defined the same for every grouping. Taipan looks at the law as one of the most useful tools in the entirety of the crossing. That's their mental state. Is that they're there because they have to be there. Just like if you have a leak and you have a wrench, that wrench is there to fix that leak. So at any point in time, if it is something that, or not any point in time, depending on the scale of conflict, if it's not just on a personal level or beyond personal, Taipan will go ahead and handle it. But like if the law is involved and they're hunting these people or whatever it may be, it's not we tell the law that this person did this, or we don't tell the law like this person's here, go arrest them. No. That would just get in the way of organic role play and everything else in between. It's more or less if like the law asks a question, like Santino Vincenzo came to the tea room, spilt my tea, and slapped me in the face. Or in this case, Azari slaps my ass. I have a big red handprint on my ass. I'm gonna tell them that I got slapped in the ass. That is just the way of doing it. That's just because that's how they believe it. It's like you get asked, you answer, you comply. But if it's against like Hong brothers or sisters or Taipan brothers and sisters, oh, no, you don't do that in the family. You know, we hold that down. Absolutely. But yeah, there is definitely a different outlook on how Taipan looks at interactions with the law, just because of the fact that with their book of crime, the law themselves, we've been actually in cahoots. Man, I wish it almost went through with it, but like there was a time where Wei was actually gonna, now that he's dead, I can say this, was actually going to get Summers arrested. He was gonna set him up.
You bastard.
Dude, it was like the fourth gem deal that we had, like the fourth
Yes.
big gem deal, and like Malone was like, I need this guy fucking gone, man. And I was like, and he came to us and like we talked for like 2 weeks, like some covert bullshit. It was fucking awesome. And then I was like, he's taking all these things and whatnot, but I was like, if you go ahead and give us like the status, like we had the whole thing, like if we get done with crime in the city, you can arrest Taipan. Like Taipan will get lesser sentences if we make this happen for you. Like we had a whole plan with this, and that's exactly what our RP is a lot of planning, a lot of espionage. Like we literally have people sitting in fucking bushes for 8 hours a day. But like it is
8 hours, you say?
Yeah, 8 hours. No joke. I have three people who are just like bush Wookiees, dude. It's the best.
Full-time job.
Full-time job.
No breaks.
And no breaks, a full-time paid. Yeah, it is. It was an awesome moment because like that was the contention of the relationship with the law in Taipan and like how that was going to be, and then of course that changed throughout time. But yeah, that's our interaction with them is that they're useful until they're not.
Yeah. And that's a big major thing with the division of the East and West too, because like a few people from the West, even if they didn't do the crime, they just own up to it. They're just like, yep, I did it. Fuck them. Like, give me my time. Like the most recent thing was like Pip was robbing a train. No, I know. Pip was like robbing a train to try to get like Jack back. And Zip got like arrested for doing it, and Zip just claimed to do the entire thing. And they would like, okay, so who beat up the train guy? Zip didn't know the train guy got beat up because he came late. So he just admitted to it. He's like, yeah, he pissed me off, so I beat the shit out of him. I dressed up as Pip so that the train staff would get confused. Like I tried to lay the whole fucking thing on the table, but it's so much more fun when you just claim that and then like you get arrested and they just find out, okay, Zip wasn't even there. What the fuck is he doing? And it just adds to like that whole like you won't even snitch on like other people, because Jack pretty much fermented that into everyone, like at least Zip's mind. Like you don't snitch on anybody. If they say you did something, like you don't tell, not your enemy, not anybody. And so like it's just like encoded into Zip's head, like you don't talk to, like Zip won't even snitch on law. Like even when the law fucks up, he won't even tell the law that this lawman did this. So it's just very big.
Yeah, I think that's the again a similar pillar between us and well, Jack Kettleman is that, right? That we don't even snitch on our enemies. Like you can gun me down and I won't snitch on you, right? It's kind of ingrained in our RP as well, for sure.
And then it adds to the whole like you always have the thought process, if there is a shootout and law just comes to think of you or just comes to talk to you have it in your head like, okay, they talked. Who else would have been there? Like who else would have said something? So you immediately put that like on them. It's like the conversation that Zip had with you guys in Rhodes. I think it was the last time we saw each other in character, and it was like Cesario was like, I'm wondering if you talk like this open to even law. And Zip was just like, no, because if I did, I would be dead. Like, there's no way that like Zip could talk to the law about anything that he knows in the West, because he knows so much information in the West that everyone would be arrested. Like, Zip would be dead by now if he did talk to the law about even the slightest thing. So it adds to that, like, that common ground, that respect between, like, even though DiCenzo's and Zip is just, I don't think there will ever be like a good, well, I can't say that, but there's still that respect there for, like, they're both criminals, they both understand each other's side, but they just don't understand the reasoning behind why they chose to do that thing. Like, it blows Zip away that you guys like broke or like did what you guys did with like Olivia and stuff. Like, Zip just can't comprehend it. He just doesn't understand why people would follow that, and I think it adds to that aspect. Allegedly, right?
Allegedly.
Yeah. Wink. Yeah, right.
That's why yeah, no names. Anyway. Did we get through everyone on that side of things? I think we kind of went on to other things at some point. Right?
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
I think that was good though. We covered
Oh
a few
yeah,
things.
yeah. I did want to ask, since we do have, a couple people recently permit in here, or, if you've been thinking about it, how do you decide when it's the right time to perma? What or generally, what do you feel like you would need in order to be okay with perming your character?
Yeah, I could go in this one.
$1
Yeah?
million.
$1 million. So I think what made it really easy for me to perma as Gavin is that I always wanted to focus on the narrative for him. And I've come to learn with villains are a lot scarier in any movie that you've ever seen is if you see them less. It's just how it is. If you
It
see the
becomes the
monster in a
boogeyman.
horror movie 3 times compared to 16 times, you're going to think the movie that showed the monster 3 times with crazy jump scares, it was far more entertaining. I think your story is going to tell you when it's time to perma. And that's kind of like linked to what we were talking about earlier with goals. I originally set out, well, first, Gavin was supposed to be nobody. Gavin wasn't supposed to be a character I even played. But once I did realize he was going to be my main character, he got this dream that he stole from Snake Williams because Jack helped Snake Williams betray Gavin to become the biggest outlaw. And that was his dream. It was very simple. It was very straightforward. I want to become a notorious outlaw that people talk about. And I realized somewhere along the way in this last arc, I call it part 3 because I have part 1, part 2, whatever you want to call it. But during part 3, I was like, I think you've achieved the goal, Johnny. And I realized that in some ways, less is more. Your story is going to tell you when it's time. And I think just accepting that all good stories have an end. Every movie, book, television show you've ever watched has a good ending. And I would make the argument that if Peaky Blinder had 14 seasons, it wouldn't be as good of a show. If The Sopranos had 30 seasons, it might still be as good of a show because it's amazing. But, all good stories have ends. So I realized somewhere along the way that my goal was achieved and it was time to move on to new things. And there's the other thing about perming is I think a lot of people think about, oh, but what if I do this with this character? Or what if I do this arc? Or what if I do this arc? And there's all these different ideas that we as role players have. I think it's important to remember and to stay true to who your character is. Your character, Gavin Summers, was never going to be a baker. Gavin Summers was never going to be a casino runner, and I think once you've kind of hit
Gavin the
all of your
Baker.
characters' archetypes, then you're on a better path to knowing when it's time to end, if that makes any sense. Your story is going to tell you. And I knew in that firefight, even though there was all these other things I wanted to do with the character and all these unresolved plot lines, I was like, this is the time. This is the scene that I wanted to end on. I got the outlaw, death, etc.
It was really good. I was watching that.
Oh,
I will say there is no wild RP the way we know it without Summers. Hands
Oh
down.
yeah, I came in
Nice to
as
meet you.
a
I'm gonna throw up.
civilian, just
Wow.
completely
I mean it.
terrified of Summers all the time. You never knew when he was gonna pop into a city that you were in.
I still can't get the image of Summers as a baker out of my head.
Do you want a
Exactly, dude.
bagel?
with the chef
Summers is
hat.
Jack Edelman.
What's that? Z? Or I still can't tell you guys' voices apart sometimes, man.
Wow.
Is that Z or Truck?
Well, I mean, you are
2.5
brothers,
years
you know.
later, dude.
Dude,
You guys sound the exact same, man. The exact same.
So Gavin Summers came to the house in Saint Denis dressed up as Jack Edelman, and it was the best shit ever, bro.
Oh, yes. yes.
That's also what I'm excited for. I can finally add comedy back to my characters because you can't be like, if you're too funny as Gavin, then like people are like, oh, he's just memeing, and it's really hard.
Yeah.
I have the same struggle, dude. It's so hard not to like to skip a comedic beat. Like, I need a K right now. This is the time to K.
Does anybody else have any?
I will say this.
Or maybe
I've been
when
thinking
not
about
perma?
I've been thinking about perma a lot recently with Jack, but
No.
Do it.
since I haven't done it, I won't really talk about it. But I will say that permas are great because they help drive story for the people. But let's take, for example, Batman and Joker. That's a great rivalry. If Joker perma season 1, what are you left with? If, Joey dies in season 2 of Friends, you don't have friends. And sometimes I think, people spend years cultivating, honing, and really sharpening a character of theirs. And sometimes, the time for the perma or what people expect has been around. Well, that's the best the character's ever been. And think what's more important about permas is arcs coming to a conclusion, because a character can exist for a long time but cycle through a lot of different arcs, and the perma is not so necessary, but it's extremely special when it happens. And I just want to leave that thought there about the
Because
perma.
with the
Yeah.
perma, it's also there's other people that may rely on your character for their story too. So like deciding that right moment is like like not really remembering that there's other people that are using your character as a way to push their story. But if you're like a major plot point in a arc and it like permas, I think it could be like great, but it's also like, okay, I wish we could have like done that like before. But then when you actually break it down to that, there's so many little arcs that are there all the time that I think you're just gonna get in your head about like, okay, I wish I would have stayed alive for that. But I think in the end of the day, like, I think it's accepting it. I think it's just accepting that it's that time and hoping
Totally.
that it does what it needs to do for everyone else's story. Because that's what's important here. Is it's not your story. You're the side piece in everyone else's story. And I think that's the biggest thing to remember when perming, when RPing, when doing any scene in general, that you are there to make that person's story, because they will return the favor to you. And your character will get that. What you put into other people's story, people are going to put into yours. And that's what makes RP thrive so much, and you get the level of RP that we have here on Wild, is because everyone understands that mentality going into it.
Exactly,
Yeah.
but that's why I permit Summers. Now I get Jack in return. I'm just messing, Peppo.
Yeah,
I've been
think
thinking
that
about it, brother. I've been thinking about
Yeah,
it for a hot
freeing,
minute.
and I tell you, your brain will come up with so much creativity if you just take a break, and then you can make whatever you want.
See, that's the thing. I got all these ideas cooking on the side.
Exactly.
I just need to give this story a good conclusion. We'll see.
You can do it. Yo,
Kinda
I'm
going
still
off-
rooting for Mills killing Jack. Just saying, if
Oh,
Mills doesn't
dude,
kill
that
Jack,
would be-
I'm unsubscribing from all the channels that's involved with that story.
unsubscribe.
Yeah, because seriously, Mills needs to kill Jack.
Oh my
After
God.
I
fucking
agree. Yeah.
after Kaniklo and then with Jed, I was like, dude, if Mills doesn't kill Jack, I'm gonna cry myself to sleep for the next month. So that's my hope.
Also, kind of going off of what Derek said earlier, being proud of being an NPC. I think I like to think of my characters as an NPC for other people. And so I don't even really worry about my story. It's how can I enrich other people's stories? Like with Ren LeBeau, with Mom, with, other people too. It's just I don't want to perma before their usefulness is over.
And I agree with that so wholeheartedly. I love to piggyback up both of what you guys just said. It is about what you can do for the the people's story. You know, the selfish thing, which is always okay to do. You know, be selfish in moderation, right? Is that, you know, it is your story, but don't. I learned that from permaing Walter Cross. I didn't realize how many people I was leaving behind as that character, killing him the way that I did. I didn't. And everyone has perma regret. All right, everyone does. Okay, everyone has
Mhm.
to take that week. They're like, oh my god, like I don't have this person anymore. But like, it is about how you die and when you die, but more or less when you die, because the how is how you feel about it, how you feel about the perma. But the so much of what your death can do can provide so much more story for others, you know, and continue that story through. But yeah, NPC life for life, man. It's the best.
Mhm.
I'm gonna say something a little different.
Please.
I don't think the word perma, should always necessarily refer to the death of a character.
Totally.
And I have one very good example. I don't know if he's, you know, in chat or anything or listening. So I hope he doesn't take offense or anything. But Robbie Gold, in my opinion, Robbie Gold died season 1 or 2 of the server whenever Langang died. The real Robbie Gold died. Like his story was kind of over in that sense of being that badass criminal, part of a major organization like the Langang was, and things like that. But his character lived on and had a whole different thing going on for years after that, right? So in my opinion, like the real Robbie Gold died, but yeah, and at that point you could say that was the perma of that particular character, that particular face of that character, and he turned into something completely different. But his actual character hadn't really died. You know, I think there's different ways to kind of like Peppo said, end certain arcs maybe that you could create or put up a wall or create another pillar and be like, okay, you know, after this, my character was no longer going to ever do something like this again, right? And you just turn into something completely different. That could be another form of permaing, right?
Yeah, yeah. Having your principles completely change. That's a good point. Or just losing everything. Um,
Yes.
Yeah,
Retirement.
like Robbie, yeah.
Retirement,
Retirement, yeah.
Oh, that's
yeah.
waste karma right there. I'm going back to China. Fuck all these.
Zip goes the law will be his perma.
Oh, jeez.
The player who plays Sheriff Cash, Albie, I often just buzz ideas off him. Something he often says when we talk about permas is that everybody underestimates the quality and a very long shelf. And I'm not talking 3 weeks, I'm not talking a month, I'm talking 6 to 8 months. And to play something completely different. And it kind of just helps you as a role player figure out either A, what you want to do with your old character, because you're not getting that on this character, or B, just kind of expand your acting portfolio, sort of. So it's also always a good idea to take a long break if you're not feeling a character at the time. Because
Dude,
sometimes,
I would love that.
yeah.
Coming back with Jack, everybody's different. Everybody's
Dude,
new. You
go
barely
put Jack
recognize new
Mills
gang.
kills Jack. Hashtag Mills kills Jack. I'm hoping
Yeah.
to stick.
Speak it into existence.
No
I'm gonna
comment.
manifest it. I'm gonna get in that ice bath tomorrow, Pep,
I've
and
been
I'm gonna
saying that,
manifest
brother.
it.
I've been
Dude.
saying that it's got to be Mills or Clay for the longest time.
I'm
I've been
manifesting it,
saying
dude.
that.
Love it.
So do you think we have time for one more question?
I got time for one more question.
Yeah.
At least, at
Should
least.
Yeah.
Yep.
How do you guys think conflict between gangs can be improved? It's something that I know has ups and downs, but what improvements would you like to see?
I would love for people just to fucking let me beat them every time. Okay.
No.
Right? Fuck everybody else. I'm holding it down, fellas. No.
33 and 0.
33 and 0.
If I had to give my 2 cents on that, if you're in conflict with somebody that you guys know it's going to be for a while, know that it is a beginning, a middle, and an end, and I specify an end, you know, and that it's an end by means. And there's no shame in communicating with the opposite side. OOC. And what I mean by that is just like what your boundaries are, what your thought processes may be, or whatever. Like everything plays out organically, of course. But it's like, okay, are we comfortable with certain things? Are we leaning on permas type of deal? If not, cool, whatever it might be. That way we can give you guys the best scenes we can in certain situations or however it may be. I think people tend to, I think it's actually something that a lot of us have learned, you know, and I'm going to be very humble here for myself. I've learned that so much through roleplay with you guys, roleplay with the community, that communication is everything. Communication leads to literally all other solutions, albeit that be trust or whatever it may be. Talking works. Do more of that. And yeah, that's my input on that.
I'm gonna say Cold War. Shootouts obviously are fucking awesome. I think we all enjoy being in shootouts. But I think there's a lot more that can be done in conflict that isn't about shootouts. That I'll take kind of like a real life example. If two gangs are at war, they don't have to kill each other necessarily. They can just go after each other's infrastructure, right? Like they could destroy their cars or they could destroy their businesses or something like that. Whatever the RP equivalent of that would be in any particular conflict in Wild RP, I think those kind of things really enrich the conflict much more than just having constant back-to-back shootouts. Like having that downtime and letting stories develop in that Cold War sense, instead of that direct conflict. I think that is probably that would help. I think a lot of different conflicts in the server, current and past.
That's
would
my
agree.
favorite thing right now with you guys, with Zip,
Right,
is having
yeah.
those talks. Like, there's that pressure of like, okay, one of these people could pull out their gun and fan the hammer, but then it just makes the tension in the room so much more rich. And then just walking away, you're still like, are they gonna shoot me in the back? Like, what's happening? Like, am I free to go? Like, it just makes that walk to the horse leaving just so much more. And then every time running into each other, it's just, you never know when it's just gonna pop off.
Yeah, the subtle threat of violence that just kind of permeates everything, right? But
Mhm.
nothing really happens. Nothing ever pops off or
Right.
hasn't yet, right? So
Tense meetings and all that.
tense
Yeah.
meetings. I would also love to see more fist fights. I want like full 6-on-6 brawls, dude. That needs to be.
Yes.
That would
that needs to
be
more of a-
yes.
It needs to be more of a staple because like everybody, and this is it's fault to the fact that we have the ability to do it. Guns are widely available, so it's like as soon as you go to war, this conflict, I'm gonna fucking go ahead and shoot this person, whatever. Like that's great, but the hatchet is wicked nerfed right now. Do you know what's fucking awesome? Beating somebody for 2 minutes with a fucking hatchet, and like that's a fight. Like, and guys, I mean, like it's like meat and potatoes, man. Like it's just fucking violence. It's great, but like
You
that
log
in a
into
good
Wild
stick
tonight, that's
fight-
all you see. Hatchets.
Yeah,
everywhere.
everyone's with
Log in.
hatchets.
Hatchets
So,
everywhere.
I would love that, and I would love to see a lot more of not in the essence just a Cold War, but just like you don't have to cap somebody for 2 to 3 days. Like beat them up, and give them
Right.
some bruises and bumps to walk around with, or maybe a broken leg. Like I've thought about. It, I'm like, it's gonna happen. I'm doing it one of these days. Someone's getting their fucking legs ran over with a wagon. Like that's happening, and
Yes.
it's gonna be. It will be great because that carries. Like that carries weight on that person's broken ass fucking leg. You just turn to jello, and then also at top of that too, it progresses story. It doesn't mean the fact that they are down for a long time or they feel like a bunch of like just a pile of meat full of scars. Like try to explore those, which would be great. I'm only jumping in on this again because I actually have to go, guys.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
I'm so sorry to have to peel off this banana, but daddy issues. You guys have a
Oh,
great rest of your night, and thank you so much. There, be through you down. You're the best, as well as
and
Privy for your
privy.
reception.
Yeah,
Thank
yeah,
you.
yeah.
Thank you so much for being in here.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you guys so much. I really appreciate it. And gentlemen, I will see you on server. Continue to great
Yeah.
RP.
Take care,
Great.
fella.
See you, brother.
Watch your back, fella.
Oh, shit.
May I comment here? I'll say because I think that Jack's got a lot of experience. That's kind of his thing. He's a fucking warmonger, and
You don't say.
a few things I would
What?
say to just keep in mind. Just know that things get heated in war. Sometimes people get a little emotional, and that's okay. Sometimes somebody will say something. Sometimes somebody will feel a certain way, and that's okay. That's number one. I think we've all been there. That's
Mhm.
number one to keep in mind. I think it's really important. And two is something I learned from Zeus a long time ago is a good thing to follow is you make a move, the ball is now in their court. You beat them up, smack them around, gun them down. Now go back to your territory and do your thing. You're the guys are the kings, and just let them. The ball is now in the other person's court. And the third thing I would say is, if you do say smoke somebody or attack somebody, don't go to the place where they hang out for a while, so that if because if you gun somebody down and then the next day you see them, it sort of takes away your own victory because they're walking, and it sort of deflates what you've done. So try to avoid going to certain places where you think you're gonna bump into. I think like Jack, Cesar, Sonny, and Summers, while they were in conflict, we only ever saw each other, I think, like 3 times during the active conflict, if even
Yeah.
that much. And so when it actually happens, it's so much more powerful. So I think that's just my take. And just have fun. Worry
Yeah.
about, see what, focus on yourself, and don't try to beat yourself up too much or get, too into what everybody else is doing.
With
And
what? Oh, sorry, Peppo.
no, that's it. That's it. Just some things that I've learned, I think, over the years.
With what you were saying too, with returning to like the scene of where you know that they hang out, it makes the aftermath of the war a little bit more surreal too, because like seeing DiCenzo's and Thieves Landing like 2 days after the war ended was such a weird fucking, like, even OOC, I was like, whoa, like it is so weird seeing them this far west. Because during the war, it's like obviously they're not going to come out there unless it's like we're preparing for a fight. So just being able, like, seeing everyone, seeing like Sissy and Cesari and Thieves Landing just hanging out with a wagon like 2 days or 3 days after the war ended just made that like a surreal scene. And I don't know, it's the kind of like the same probably how you felt, Z, when you saw Mills and Alice, Zip, and I think James in Saint Denis Bank the day after, and it was still before we had that
Yeah.
meeting to like actually say like, okay, we talked to both sides, we talked to everyone in the outfit, everyone is okay with this war ending. So it just built up the tension because it was like there was 4 of us and 2 of you, and it just built that up a little bit more. And I'm sure it was like surreal seeing us just casually in Saint Denis without guns or without an intense scene happening, but that in turn made it intense.
Yeah, it was for sure, for sure.
I can
So-
argue my 2 cents as well.
Yeah.
If you guys want.
Yeah, please.
Here's what I've learned from conflict / war RP and wild RP. Number one,
All
I
right,
think
Patrick.
something that Derek said very early on, communication is super key. I think something that a lot of gangs on gang conflict would benefit from is if you take both groups and put everybody in a group chat or a Discord, and then everyone can kind of just communicate, because sometimes in war RP you get lost a little bit, and you can look at players as characters and not characters as people, right? And we're all people who are telling stories and playing fantasy for fun, right? And
Right.
sometimes, as Peppa said, things get lost in the mix. So I think if that communication is just open from the get-go, and you can express however you're feeling in a more productive and just conducive way with everyone, you won't run into as many hiccups along the way. And then secondly, I think the big one is that I don't think people realize the stage we have with Red Dead Redemption. It is such a cool game for cinematic shootouts.
Oh my
And what I
God.
mean is,
Oh,
I wish
yeah.
there was just an unspoken rule of shootouts, is that everyone gets into position. You can take your Wild West stance, and everyone's standing however you want, and then you make a scene. Nobody gets fanned. Nobody has, quote unquote, the upper hand. Now, the other part of War RP is just this blatant rule. If you are alone in War RP, you're probably going to get snatched. I'm a firm believer that if you get snatched, then you're going to get what's coming to you. You might get tortured, you might get fanned, etc. But for most points in shootouts, I wish that everyone just had the same page of etiquette. They're like, hey, someone's going to say, I'm going to scream, light them up. We're going to pull our first shot, and everyone take cover and have a shootout, because the shootouts that last 30, 40, an hour long are so much more satisfying than that like 36-second shootout that fits into a clip.
Yeah.
That's my brief
Mhm.
explanation
For
of
sure.
my
Yeah,
2 things
yeah.
that I think War
I-
RP would benefit from.
I
Treat
agree
everything
with,
like a scene,
right.
Yeah.
I agree
Maybe
with
we
that.
can make a resolution to use less guns in the future, in this year. Maybe.
Mm,
Yeah,
Fun.
but that
Crossing
All right,
just
fine.
gets rid of guns, and it's only machetes and hatchets. Everyone's running around throwing knives, and the pockets filled. Instead of ammo, they'll need throwing knives. It takes like 30 knives to down someone now.
I like my throwing knives.
I mean, they're fun to throw in people's legs, but
Yeah.
to kind of say what Blamz was saying with that, I think the cinematic shootouts are amazing, but I think they're also, as long as it's not used every time, I think there is a moment where that fan the hammer scene will make the scene a little bit better than just the shootout, because it kind of sets a staple, especially if it's a character that doesn't do that, and it like sets a precedence for that. Like I do agree, preferred, I would rather have the shootouts last longer, But I do see like a scene where fanning the hammer on somebody would enrich that story a lot more and just cause ripples down like in the long
Totally.
run with it.
You know
But
what
the
else would be
devil's
cool?
advocate with you there is that monkey see, monkey do. It's a big thing
Right.
that I saw even when I was on staff. So if I fan the hammer to somebody, or Z or Peppo or any of us, somebody else might see that and deduce or convince himself that no, this makes the scene better, when really they're making it a 5-on-6 rather than a 6-on-6. Nothing stings more
Right.
than when you want to be in a shootout and you get downed in the first 10 seconds. It stings.
Right.
It's happened to probably all of us here.
Yep.
Yep.
You know what would be sick is if more in fights that like you take your you guys are behind cover, like people get down and the wounded you kind of back off. So you have these skirmishes and then you back off. You have these skirmishes and you take your wounded and go, because for a long time the meta has been in our server, you meet up to a fight, the last man standing reses everybody on his side, and that's the winner. So but it would be cool, and that's kind of a lame, and we've all done that. That's just how the meta has been, literally, I think, since I've kind of been in the server. But it would be cool if some side, gets some down, the other side gets some down, and like there's a rush to help your wounded. And that's definitely something that I need to do more too. But I think that'll be really cool, because that happened a few times with Law, where we gunned them down, and maybe one of ours was wounded. We let them take their wounded, and they went to go lick their wounds, and then we went off to
Paradise.
keep it going, because that move where last man standing. You
Always,
just
dude.
pray like, please let it be our guy. Please let it be. You just on the floor, please. And then finally, you hear the voice of your guy shuffling to your body to res you up. And then you go and get the enemy, and then you res the enemy up, and you have your fucking, we got you now.
Wild
So-
RP would be completely different if normal people can use med bags. Imagine that universe.
Oh,
If
It'd be
what?
crazy.
If what?
Imagine if that res meta didn't exist. So like imagine if
only-
I would love
doctors, or
it.
you had to deliver bodies to a medical center, and then like it was super real, or like you were gone for an hour, because like sometimes I struggle with that too as outlaws. Like, sure, we can learn to stitch up and we can like do the motions of slash me, puts pressure, blah blah blah, the routine. But like really, outlaws in this realm had no idea how to remove a bullet. Typically they would take out your
Off
bullet,
your leg if
cauterize
you
it,
had the
and hope you don't
scratch.
get infected.
they would use a knife to
Yeah.
jimmy it out.
You'd probably
Cut your
die.
arm off.
Yeah.
I always think about that.
Cut
Me-
your arm off.
Me and Oh Hey Liam, who plays Oliver Quill, when we first joined the server, we came from a server where only doctors could res. Like, there wasn't even a location to take you to res. Only a doctor can res you, or Law. So Law had like the ways to like get you up. But when we came to Wild RP, we didn't know for the first like 2 months of being here that there was a medical bag for us to be able to revive each other. So we were just doing that whole thing. So I would be totally 100% okay with it. The only issue is for the late night people where there is no doctors.
Yeah.
But as long as they
Totally.
have that place, like if you could bring it to the doctor's office and do that medical RP, I would totally. I would not
You could
mind
still
that at all.
respawn, but just like imagine that meta of the last man standing still
Dude,
loses. Like you're
right.
still like shit, my gang got gunned down. You're like, this
Yeah.
is very bad. That dynamic of what shootouts make
Dude,
for
that is
characters would change
interesting,
crazy.
man.
Because
That
you're
is so
hauling
interesting.
people back
Wait,
and
didn't
forth
they
through
lock
the
the
scene
door?
to the town. They did, yeah.
Yeah, they
So
did.
you can't get medical bags anymore.
No,
you
you
gotta
can't.
No,
stock
no, no.
on them.
There's still a shop. So you could go into the shop. It's just like Valentine,
Oh,
the very back
interesting.
room is locked, and then Saint Denis, the like surgery room. But you could still go into the lobby and buy medical bags. Every tent is, or every shop is still available. It's just like, I think it's to push out like when their doctors are doing like surgeon RP and stuff like that. It stops people from like running in there and just throwing bodies on the ground or something like that. I'm pretty sure it's just
Totally.
to protect that part of it.
Mhm.
I gotta get going here. So, but I do want to, before I leave, just say first of all, thank you, Privy and Bud, for having us
Yeah,
on.
thank you.
Of course.
But guys, I've been in the server for a long time, and two of the staples of our server, I really think, is if there's a Rushmore, the Chancels are on there, and Summers is on there for sure. And it's an honor to role play with you guys. I've learned a lot role playing with you guys, and sometimes I look back and I'm, we're looking at how far we've come, all of us, and I'll just be like, man, I feel kind of proud that we've been
Hell
telling
yeah.
we've been telling these stories, and I think you guys have been. I always talk about orbits and where people go to get RP, And I know that sometimes there's a criticism that numbers this, numbers that. But when I saw Van Horn, when I first, when I returned after Renee's permit to play with Jack, what was happening in Van Horn with all the people, everybody went there for RP. The DiCenzo Manor. If you're in, I was gonna say Italy. If you're in Saint Denis, all you gotta do is go to the Manor. You're gonna get RP. So I think that's one of the biggest metrics for being a good role player is providing for others. And with that said, we barely even have any scenes, because we all kind of keep to ourselves in our own little corners doing our thing. But every
Yep.
scene that we've had, I think, is always so charged. No one knows which way it's gonna go, and I think it's really cool. What I'm proud to be able to role play with you guys.
Hey, likewise, brother.
100%.
Thanks so much, man.
Cheers to that.
Scenes here with you guys have been
Oh, it's been great.
always, and that's something I've always said. And I've learned a lot from you too, Peppo. When you were first like the streaming in the server and all that. We still look up to you today, but remember the good old days when the server was still growing. I learned a lot from you, so I appreciate that, brother.
Likewise, man. Likewise, and I mean that from the bottom of my heart. So and with that, I love you guys. I'm gonna get going.
But before you go,
Thank you.
Talk.
Bobby
Yes.
Stonehands Dixon, baby. All
Wait.
day.
Oh,
All day,
dude. We're
baby.
gonna. I know.
I'll never forget.
The story was so cooking with Jack there.
I know.
But if we linked up, I'm telling you, we would have shut shit down. I'm just telling you.
I love it, dude. Love you, man.
Love you.
Hey, guys.
Take care, guys. Love you all. Thank you.
Love you. Have a good one.
Yeah.
I'm gonna
later,
follow
bro.
Peppo's suit as well, and I gotta go make dinner.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
thank you
Yeah,
guys seriously
thank
for having
you.
me. Z, Croc, love RPing with you guys. Can't wait to do it more. Bud, Privy, thank you guys for having me.
Looking forward to your
Yeah.
next character, Johnny.
Yeah, I'll be live with my next character next week, so hopefully you run into him. So
I hope I
Yeah.
get to RP with you. I didn't really get to. I met Summers
know,
once
dude.
and we didn't talk.
I'm sure we'll cross paths.
Yeah.
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 Okay,
we
Ren
guys.
will.
only had 2 scenes. It was good.
All right, homies,
you,
I'll
Johnny.
catch you.
See ya.
Ciao.
And then
Yeah, no,
the
Alright.
DiCenzos. Always love you
The
guys.
Chenzos and the Quills.
Hey,
That was
thanks for
such
having
a
us,
cool
guys.
scene. At
Yeah,
that
thank
house.
you
Yeah,
for,
thank
It was
you.
great.
Johnny, we need to do some PUBG again.
Yeah, man.
Or
Yeah,
Among
that's
Us.
Yeah.
I'm down. Whatever we got to set it up. Yeah, just let us know. We're always open to do some variety and whatnot. So yeah, hit us up. You can do that.
Hell
Some
yeah.
family PUBG.
All right. Well, see you guys later. Thanks again for hosting us, and
See you. Thank you for
take
coming.
care.
Yeah,
You
thank
as
you
well.
guys so much
Thank
for
you so
being here.
much. Appreciate it. Ciao,
Yeah.
ciao.
Y'all have a
Ciao.
good night.
All right, chat. Thank you so much for being here.
Before you go,
Sorry, it's
Privy,
yours.
I
Yeah.
think next week we're gonna be probably doing another one. It's either gonna be with the Sisika guards and lifers, or it's gonna be the Kettleman gang.
Okay.
We're gonna try to get past present Kettlemans, so we'll probably reach out to, everyone that has been like mentioned in KG recently. I still need to reach out to everyone, so it's whoever we could grab first, either the Siska guards and lifers or the Kettleman gang. And Privy and I talked about this. We're gonna try to be doing these things once a week and including everyone from the server, not just like we want a different theme every time. So like reaching out to like the even civilians of Valentine and stuff like that. We're gonna keep these coming. So
Mhm.
we
And I would
will-
like to eventually do all the different gangs as well and just bring as many people in as we can from them.
right.
I think that'd be cool.
Right. And yeah, so each week or maybe even every other week we're going to have like a different subject and bring in bringing in fresh people into the server just to see how they've come so far into the server and stuff like that. I think it's going to be a fun ride with these little podcasts. So I'm glad or hope and glad to those that do enjoy it, and I hope you guys enjoy it. I hope you guys had a good time today. I'm sure most of these people may be going live. I'm not sure. We should have asked.
Probably a lot of them. Yeah, we should have asked as they left, unfortunately.
But
We can still shout them all out.
yeah. We'll do the shout outs. I will probably be taking like a 10-minute break and then hopping into Zip. But yeah, Privy, anything else?
Drink your Ovaltine?
What the fuck is Ovaltine?
Oh, okay. No one watch. You don't watch A Christmas Story then. All right, that's fine.
I just remember you'll shoot your eye out, kid.
Someone in chat will know what that means. Anyway, all right. I'll hop out. Thank you so much. See you after a little bit.
All right. Thank you, Privs.
Thank you, bud. See ya.
Later. All right. We're gonna roll credits.